Sills, National Football Show. Welcome aboard. Appreciate everybody coming aboard each and every single day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 Eastern time. We so appreciate you. And you know what's great about the NFL? You know what's great about the NFL? It's front page every day. The National Football League is front page every day. Oh, and this just in. If you're Jalen Hurts, I was just telling Tone this. If you're Jalen Hurts, without even opening your mouth, with saying all the right things, you probably made yourself yesterday $10 million. And you probably put yourself in the $45 million range for your annual salary because of the guy in New York. I would agree with this. Daniel Jones, that's a market value quarterback. That's a market value guy. And if you're going to give that dude $35 million, what's Jalen Hurts worth? 50? Hurts didn't have to say a word. Clutch Sports didn't have to do one bit of negotiating. He sat back, answered all the questions. Hey, that time will come. Doing all the right things, public appearances, face of the franchise, no adversarial relationship. Jalen Hurts is making money in his silence. Think of that for a minute. He doesn't even have to open his mouth, and the market is now going like this in front of Jalen Hurts without even opening his mouth. Daniel Jones? I will say this to you. If I'm the New York Giants and somebody told me that I got to pay Daniel Jones $35 million, why wouldn't I just cut off the negotiations and go get Derek Carr? I feel better giving Derek Carr $35 million before I give Daniel Jones, Mr. Truly one-year wonder. Okay, I mean, why in the world would you do anything or say anything or even come to the table? I'm not saying that the Eagles and Jalen Hurts' folks haven't already broached those conversations, because I believe they have. But look at what the market has done in the last 2 days. This is 1 week removed from the Super Bowl. And you already have a quarterback in the open market commanding, or asking, I should say, for $45 million. And he's far not worth that. Daniel Jones, I would never come. Dude, I got a problem with the franchise tag of 32.7. I got a problem giving that guy $32 million. I'd rather give Derek Carr or Garoppolo that money. At least they've won and they've put up numbers. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. Those weren't exceptional numbers he put up this year. They were okay. Some will go, well, Sills, that. Well, if that's market value, let me go find a better talent. Daniel Jones is not a better talent than Derek Carr. And if I'm going to pay $35 million, let alone 40, I'm going to go get Carr, man. At least I know he's good. At least I know this guy's going to put up some really great numbers. Can you imagine Derek Carr and DeAndre Hopkins in New York? With Saquon Barkley? I'm good with that. Watch this. $35 million, Derek Carr. Here's 10 for Saquon. I go get, they got a bunch of, Cone told me they got about $40 million in cap space. So you go get DeAndre Hopkins too? Giants are good. Giants are good. Derek Carr's got a hell of a market. Bucks, Carolina, New Orleans, the Jets. Shit, there'll be other teams. Hey, if you're the Cowboys, how about this? Think about this if you're the Cowboys. Is Derek Carr an upgrade to Dak Prescott? I think so. If I'm going to pay 42, why wouldn't I just trade him somewhere to like Green Bay? Then you can get rid of Rodgers. Why wouldn't you do that? Plus, the Cowboys would have a quarterback that's less dough. Come on, man. Let's make this happen. Okay? Let's make this happen. Get to the table. Hey, Jalen Hurts is sitting there making money right now, not even opening his mouth. What a great play by Jalen. By the way, today is franchise tag day. We'll talk about that with your favorite team and also the Eagles. Again, folks, I want to make this very clear. I was just telling Tone this. My problem with paying Jalen Hurts is not the money on the base. It's the length. I'm not giving that guy lengthy contracts. I'm just not. Dual threat doesn't last. Even Tony Dungy said that. By the way, we got Seth Joyner at the bottom of the hour. And we're going to talk to Seth and get his spin on everything. I know Seth disagrees with me too. So be prepared for that. Seth is at the bottom of this hour. Also, little programming note. Tomorrow, the head football coach of the Carolina Panthers. At 4 p.m. Eastern time, Frank Reich will join us. And we'll talk to the head coach, get his thoughts on Jalen Hurts. Carolina, I'm also going to ask Frank if he and Nick Sirianni were kind of ping-ponging things going back and forth on Andy Reid. So I'm gonna ask Frank that tomorrow. That'll be at 4 p.m. Okay. You know, I keep hearing names when it comes to the defensive coordinators. And first off, let me ask you this. Let me get to the topic here. Before we get to Seth Joyner at the bottom of the hour, what kind of defensive coordinator do you think Jonathan Gannon was? I'm going to read some names here to you. I'm going to ask Seth Joyner this question. You know, his defense finished second in the NFL. Here are some of the greatest defensive coordinators in the Super Bowl era for the Eagles. Jimmy Johnson, 1999 to 2008, won 97 ball games as defensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz, 2016 to 20, won 42 games and a Super Bowl. Jeff Fisher, 89 to 90, 21 and 11. Sean McDermott, 2009 to 2010, 21 and 11. Jonathan Gannon, 23 and 11, won an NFC championship. Where does Gannon fit in there? Sean McDermott, Jeff Fisher, Jim Schwartz, who's now the current DC in Cleveland, or Jim Johnson. And of course, the overseer of those great gang green teams was Buddy Ryan. Where do you put Jonathan Gannon? And by the way, do me a favor. You know the great sack total that the team had this year? That had nothing to do with Jonathan Gannon. That had everything to do with guys pinning their ears and getting it done. He did nothing. I don't see a safety with big sack numbers or a linebacker. Or guys blitzing to get sacks. There wasn't any schematical thing that made those 70 sacks stand out where, hey, man, you see that guy bring that exotic blitz? There was none of that. Where's Gannon? Does Gannon deserve to be considered one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the history of the Eagles? In his 2 years, is he better than Jeff Fisher? I don't think so. How about Sean McDermott? McDermott is an aggressive guy. Jim Schwartz? Jim had his quirks about his defense. Jim Johnson? I don't mean to insult you guys. Okay? I don't mean to insult you. Where does Gannon fit in this list? See, here's the problem that Eagle fans have. Look at the names that I mentioned to you. Johnson, Schwartz, Fisher, McDermott, all aggressive dudes. Brian Dawkins said he couldn't play for Jonathan Gannon. I probably think more Brian Dawkins, when he said that on IP, meant that he couldn't play in that style. I'm going to ask Seth Joyner that question. I bet you Seth can't play in that style either. Can you imagine Jonathan Gannon being the defensive coordinator of Reggie White, Seth Joyner, Andre Waters, Wes Hopkins, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons? Can you imagine? You had all those pieces. And I don't know. And someone will look around and go, Dan, he was second. Yeah, against inferior opponents. I always thought those numbers were shallow numbers and hollow numbers. Bud Carson, too, man. You're right. UST, Bud Carson was also a heck of a coordinator when it came, but Buddy oversaw a lot of that stuff. The question will be, what kind of defense does Howie want? You know, I saw on the front page of the Inquirer, what kind of coordinators does Nick Sirianni want? You're asking the wrong question. What kind of coordinator does Howie Roseman want? Howie's the one building the team. I think you get your coordinator in the building, then you determine who's coming back. Then you determine who's out there in the open market that can help that guy scheme. They're not going to have a lot of money unless they go young. The only way you're going to get a top flight guy in here that's a free agent is if you whack that entire defense. Draft rookies and pick and choose. You better be right. You better be Bradbury right. You better be Hassan Reddick right. You better be right like that if you're going to have the same results as you did a year ago. By the way, I want to make sure that I keep telling people this. And again, people over on my Twitter page, once again, and Tone, you guys are doing a great job on the clips. You're doing a great job on the clips. But once again, I asked the question to you. Is Jalen Hurts going to be able to lead a team to a Super Bowl win with a lesser team? Some would go like this. He had a lesser team. That's not true. Patrick Mahomes had the lesser team. Not Jalen Hurts. There's no $20 million wide receiver in Kansas City. There's no 1,300-yard back in Kansas City. There's not a $75 million offensive line in Kansas City. Your two tackles alone are $18 million, offensive tackles. Shit, your defensive tackles are $14 million apiece. Lesser talent. Are you crazy? Guys are saying yes. How do you know that? He couldn't before in his first year. And people go, well, wait a minute. That was his first. Well, Joe Burrow's first year starting. Got hurt halfway through. And then his first full year starting, he took a team to the Super Bowl. Cincinnati. That's my concern. The more you pay him, the lesser of a team you're going to have. People keep going, well, Howie's going to work. Howie can't. Dude, you guys have to understand one thing. Howie can't work magic when a guy wants to get paid. There's no magic to work. There's no magic to work. There's $224 million. That's a salary cap. That's it. Well, we can restart. Yeah, okay. You can't. That notion that Hurts is the second best quarterback in the league with 1 year under his belt of good play, great play, is obnoxious. How do you know that? You were so sold on Wentz. After 17, you gave him a boatload of money. You were 100% sold. Hence the contract extension. Oh, this is different. Really? The situations are the same. The only thing different is that Wentz, get this, Wentz even got hurt and got a contract extension. That's, again, I'm talking, you know what's funny? People get on me for this, and I'm about building the Eagle roster up again and making it look like the 49er roster. And you guys are fighting me on it because you want to pay one guy. I don't give a shit about one guy. I care about putting a Super Bowl roster together. Why shouldn't you? This is not about one guy. This is not tennis or golf. This is about 53 dudes and coaches all rowing in the same direction. It's not about paying one guy. Ask the Cowboys that. Ask the Raiders that. Ask the Vikings that. Ask any team that's paid their guy. Ask Seattle that. It's a team sport. And the more you pay and put focus on one dude, that's why Brady did something that was against the NFL Players Association, Will, and really against the guy behind him coming in. He always took less dough. You know why? Because Brady invested in himself. Do you know why Brady's got that resume? Brady's got that resume because he looked at the roster first before himself. That's how he won. They were able to always have a balanced salary cap and a balanced team. Look at what the Eagles are going to have. If you come back with all those free agents, how many people do you think out of the 9 starters are going to come back that are free agents? 4 tops. 4. 4 tops. The rest of them, all your money is going to be on the offensive side. That's an unbalanced roster. You think you're going to be the second-ranked defense in the NFL with a completely different facelift? Absolutely not. You'll be lucky to be 15th. Will that be good enough to get a team to a Super Bowl? I don't think so, because that means this. There won't be a lot of 3-and-outs like there were a year ago. Blunt goes, would you trade? I'm not trading Hurts. That's not, again, you're missing this, guys. Maybe it's me and it's not landing right. I'm trying to figure out a way to keep Jalen and the team intact as much as I can. Why aren't you? Why aren't you thinking that way? Why do some people have to bring in outside conversation that has nothing to do with football? Well, you just don't want to play a black. What's that got to do with building a roster? What does that have to do with winning? Race, gender, all of that other nonsense that people talk about has nothing to do with winning. 0. It's fodder for all the idiots in the world. This is about winning. Again, it's not paying Jalen. And by the way, I don't care what you pay him. I care about keeping that roster close to the Niners. You're not close to the Niners right now. You got 9 guys that are starters, that are free agents, that had career years. You're not bringing people back unless you designate them in franchise tags. Restricted, all that shit. You may have to bring out the franchise tag book and put on some of these guys, because you're not going to be able to negotiate. Bradbury doesn't want to negotiate a contract that's under market value again. Why would he? Why would you want him to? I'm for the player getting his money. Hey, I'm not for Daniel Jones getting his money. Or maybe I am. Maybe they should just give Daniel Jones the $35 million and let Saquon Barkley walk, because that would be the dumbest thing on the planet. But for me, I mean, why aren't you thinking like me here? Let's figure this out with Jay. By the way, that's the number one thing you got to figure out. There's 2 things you got to figure out here. Who your defensive coordinator is and paying Hurts. And who then after that you're going to designate to try to get back and bring back. Know this, your team's going to be a lesser team this coming season. It'll be a lesser, and by the way, that may be even with Jalen still on the last year of his rookie contract, because these Gardner Johnson, unless they franchise tag him, will not be an Eagle. He'll get $16 million. Bradbury's going to get $17 million. Shit, TJ Edwards may get $6.5. Howie's not paying that. Kaiser White might get $3 million. Fletcher Cox probably will be like a Dominican Sue, Buccaneer Dominican Sue. Somebody will come up and pay him $6 million to come in there and stop the run and play. I thought he played pretty good in the second half. Brian goes, we all know this? No, not all know this. No, not all know this. Look at Tony. Says that Kaiser is getting more than 3, and he laughed. Why, your boy Dean didn't do dick this year. As far as I'm concerned, he's got all the traits to be a bust. What do you see that I don't? Or what did you see that made you say he's going to be a player? What? Howie told you that? Yeah, that's because Howie's been great at drafting linebackers. Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been legendary at corners and linebackers and edge rushers. Legendary. He's actually stunk. I mean, yeah. Hey, so Kaiser White, man, you know, he was good, Sills, but Nakobe Dean's better. How do you know that? You do not know that. You do not know that. As far as I'm concerned, I'm leaning more towards my take in the fact that guy hasn't really showed me anything. Okay? That guy hasn't really showed me anything so far. And you're counting on Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, who were underperforming last year. I thought Jordan was okay at the beginning. But again, there were a lot of bums on that roster. Or I should say on the schedule. A lot of bums you played. Terrible O-lines. You know? When you had to play. He got crushed in the Super Bowl. He was terrible in the Super Bowl. Okay? Well, your take had Jalen starting 2-4 last year. I also had a take that he would never throw for 4,000 yards and he would get hurt. So you're right. I missed one of them. You're right, Big Trag. You're right. But I also said he'd never throw for 4,000 yards. And why was that? Because he would get hurt. That's what happened. Okay? CJ Gardner-Johnson will get franchised. Yeah, because Howie does that a lot. You can't trade for a young, talented player knowing he wants a contract from the Saints and not sign him. This is Howie. He can do what he wants, right? Bob, he's got no leverage over Gardner-Johnson. He's a free agent. He's a UFA. He's an unrestricted free agent. Okay? He's not actually even, well, technically, March 15th, he's not an Eagle anymore. Okay? And by the way, don't get disappointed when I say that the 49ers have a better roster than you. Don't worry, that's February 21st. The Eagles didn't have a better roster than the 49ers last year on February 21st. But you built one in, you built through free agency and trades, you built a better roster. So it's not a big deal. It's February 21st. The 49ers have no questions like this, except, again, the most important, which is the quarterback. But again, they got to the NFC Championship game with Mr. Irrelevant. You're missing the point on that. Do you know what an absolute gold nugget that is for San Francisco? That they didn't have to pay a quarterback to get to the NFC Championship game? There's franchises around the National Football League that paid $45 million, and either the quarterback got hurt, got bounced in the opening round of the playoffs, or didn't even make the playoffs. And the Niners had a guy who's making less than $1 million get them one game less as far as Jalen Hurts. $900,000. Seals, you can't criticize us when Howie drafts your Christian Gonzalez, talking about the kid from Oregon. I like the kid from Oregon. Oregon produces good players. It's one of the few Pac-12 schools still left that produces. Penei Sewell, Kayvon Thibodeau, Justin Herbert. This kid Gonzalez is kind of that too. Dan, you will ignore that Dean was thrown in against the Titans and made tackles on every play. Tony, he wasn't very good this year. I don't care what you say. He wasn't very good. San Francisco still won't make it. Kyle Shanahan can't finish. Fair. Rich, that's fair. Kyle Shanahan, like Tone says, can't just put your name on the test and say, hey, I passed. Okay, he's Tone's dead on. Kyle Shanahan continually puts his name on the Super Bowl test and fails the test. That's a fair criticism. Brian goes, I hate the Pac-12. What's funny is the Pac-12 used to produce some of the greatest defensive linemen and O-linemen and running backs in the history of the NFL. Now, you got Lincoln Riley, who doesn't believe in defense, running USC. USC will never look the same because look at what that guy did to Oklahoma. Oklahoma used to be a program that produced some of the greatest defensive linemen in NFL history. I can't think of an Oklahoma Sooner that plays defense that I go like this. Now, look, Lane came out of there. You're going to see O-linemen. You're going to see offensive players, but you'll never see a defensive guy come out of that place any longer. You just don't. He'll destroy that place. Josh Huff. Who? Josh Huff. Who? Niners got bent over by the Chiefs. Yeah, and they went on a run then. You know, it's funny. Brian Dawkins made a comment on WIP a couple days ago where he said that he couldn't play for Jonathan Gannon. I wonder if he couldn't play for Jonathan Gannon or he couldn't play in that scheme. As I mentioned to you, before I bring Seth Joyner on, because I want to set this up here with Seth. Here's the guys that have in the Super Bowl era that I put down, and I could probably put down Bud Carson. Jim Johnson, 99 to 2008. Jim Schwartz, 2016, 2020. Jeff Fisher, 89 to 90. Sean McDermott, 2009 to 2010. Let's not forget Buddy Ryan overseeing all of that. The creator of the 46. Remember something, when you're talking about a guy like Ryan, he took guys like Seth Joyner, Andre Waters, and Wes Hopkins and these guys and created a defense. Jonathan Gannon had 70 sacks this past year. That's not a result of him. That would mean like this. That means that Seth Joyner had 20 sacks because of exotic blitzes. That's just guys pinning their ears back and going. And when he got in the Super Bowl against a play caller and a quarterback that knew what he was doing, dude, the quarterback in the second half was 90%, and the throwaway was the only incomplete pass. I think that guy was a fraud the whole way. He takes onus of the Super Bowl. I'm like, dude. And then you start bringing press coverage in the Super Bowl when your guys didn't play it all year. That guy made no sense to me. Let's bring in the legendary Seth Joyner. He joins us now. Seth, am I wrong when I say, let me ask you flat out. Do you think you could play for Jonathan Gannon?
No, not the way I was wired. Hell no. Just dropping back in passive zones all day, not really playing any man coverage, no blitzes, no aggressiveness, and everybody thought I was crazy early in the year, and it was masked by the fact that, the defense racked up 70 sacks and broke the record that, my guys pretty much, set. But, I just feel like, the football is an aggressive game, and there's nothing passive about it. Nothing good comes from, a passive-minded, a passive-natured, coordinator, coach, or head coach, in that regards. I think everything that you do has to be of an aggressive, mindset. And like I said, I took a lot of flack early in the year because they just kept getting better and better and better, But I will tell you, I'll tell you this, Dan. The Eagles, when they went to Super Bowl 57, they scored the same amount of runs, the same amount of points as the 49ers. They were tied in the NFL, 28.7 points per game, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs don't really have this huge, this great defense. But what they do have is they have a couple of playmakers that play well. They got an aggressive defensive coordinator, and they got an offense that scores a lot of freaking points. Dan, you know how easy it is to play defense when you know that your offense is going to go out there and give you 28 points per game. And most of the time you're playing from ahead. So that leads to the understanding of why this defense put up so many sacks this year, because they were playing from a position of being ahead. Now, you get to the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden that changes. You go from being ahead and playing on a sloppy field, it takes away your effectiveness as a pass rushing unit, and the defensive coordinator doesn't make any kind of adjustments at all. He doesn't bring an extra guy. He doesn't come up with anything creative. He doesn't do anything different. He keeps doing what he's doing, and the game is getting away from him. You go from a 10-point lead to being down by 3 and then being down by 8. And your quarterback keeps bringing you back, and he keeps bringing you back. And when you need a play the most, you can't get it done because all year long, you've put your guys in a passive posture. And now when you ask them to be aggressive, you get down in the red zone, those 2 touchdown passes, you come with blitzes, and you got problems because you got guys that aren't used to doing it. They're afraid of the situation that they're in instead of being confident about it. And then you see the mistakes and the errors, And to a certain extent, I can understand why he's apprehensive about calling more blitzes, because every single time that they're in it, it blows up in his face. But if you don't have an aggressive posture from the 20 to the 20, you can't all of a sudden whip it up out of nowhere once you get in the red zone and think it's going to work.
Seth, have the Eagles approached you about being the defensive coordinator of that football team?
Oh, no.
Oh, I said, and by the way, Seth, before you go on, I said you would be a horrible hire. And I said this reason why. Because you're going to want to be aggressive. You're going to want to work with Nick. And I think Howie runs the whole ship. It's Howie hiring the coordinator. It's Howie talking about what kind of scheme, because they're his players. And you would be in a Doug Peterson back and forth. Is that the read that you think would end up, not saying you'd go into it like that, but it would evolve into that. Is that fair?
Well, listen, I don't believe that Howie Roseman hired Jonathan Gannon as a defense coordinator.
Okay.
I think that he was brought. Nick Sirianni liked him and he brought him along. Same way that Jonathan Gannon left and he took, the Rallis kid with him to be his defense coordinator. I think the same thing happened, with Jonathan Gannon coming here. And I don't know because, Dan, I'm pretty good at reading between the lines. I've been around football a long time, and I understand the coach speak. And when I hear a coach say something, I know what he's trying to say without outwardly saying it.
You can read the room.
Yeah. And there were some things, if you go back and you look at Nick Sirianni's press conference after the Super Bowl, he almost slipped up and said some things a couple of times, not in defense of Jonathan Gannon. Okay. So obviously there were some frustrations there, but he was also, one of the guys who came out and was, a big Jonathan Gannon supporter. and came after people who had things to say about Jonathan Gannon as a defensive coordinator. You know, I get it. He's your guy. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to take a look at it, you know, and I go back. I keep going back right before the bye week. And Jonathan Gannon, you know, the city was just ripping him, you know, for being so passive. And Nick Sirianni came out and said, you know, listen, Jonathan and I, we talk. And, you know, what I do is I'm looking at the situation we're up. And if we're up, you know, I kind of let him know that I want to be a little more passive. We don't need to take any chances. Okay. Now, when I look at the great defenses and the great offenses in the league, they don't take their foot off the pedal to the 2-minute mark and they got you down by 20 or 30. Okay. There's no way they can come back then. But many, many times throughout this season, you saw the team get a lead early because they were very explosive in the beginning of the year in the second quarter. They had problems scoring points, you know, in the second half, but they beat the hell out of people in the second quarter, and now they got a lead. And instead of maintaining being aggressive and trying to blow the scoreboard up like Kansas City and like Buffalo, they called the dogs off. And there's a lot of games that turn into games that didn't necessarily have to be games. So Nick Sirianni defended him. And I don't know whether he was defending him because he was his guy or whether he was defending him because that's the sort of defense that he wants implemented on his team. And if that's the case, it doesn't matter because I see him, you know, interviewing the DB coach from Michigan and, you know, another DB coach from the college ranks. And it's like, what the hell are we doing? You know, all the good vetted guys who could step into that job, okay? And you want to go and interview some damn college DB backs and college defensive coordinators, and you think they're going to step into the NFL and give this team what it needs next year with an explosive offense and a first-time NFL defensive coordinator when you got all of these guys who are qualified? Vance Joseph ain't a bad idea. You know, Rex Ryan wouldn't be a bad idea. There's a lot of guys that are qualified that have been there and done that.
Lovey.
So it kind of, Lovey Smith, it kind of leads me to believe that he wants a guy that's less aggressive, that will play defense the way Jonathan Gannon did, because one of his thing is creating explosive plays and minimizing explosive plays, you know? So let me ask you the question. If you go on a 12-play drive 3 times in a half and score every time, or whether you throw a bomb and score 3 times, what difference does it make? It's still 21 points, isn't it? So you might as well err on the side of trying to make something happen instead of sitting back, allowing things to happen, because that is the MO. That is the old adage. You're either making something happen or you're having something happen to you. And I would much rather be on the other side.
Jimmy Johnson used to always say this, and my Coach Johnson would always say, well, if you play zone, do you want to bleed to death? Or if you play man, do you want to be shot in the head? That's exactly what it is, man. You're gambling this way. But Seth, I want to go back and I want to ask you this, because the reason I asked you that question, if the Eagles had asked you if you'd be interested in being a coordinator, is because Rick Spielman and Chris Spielman both reached out to me, and Chris had contacted Ohio State after the whole incident there after Urban Meyer. They needed a coach. And he said, hey, how come Seth is not, his name's not up for defensive coordinator? I would think that would be something that he would want. Seth, would you ever offer your name up to them and go to him and say, hey, look, if you guys want my help for anything, or maybe you have in the past, do you want my input? Because they seem to be open with Jason Kelsey and asking what kind of lineman they're looking at with Jeff Stoutland. I mean, have you ever gone to them and said, hey, I'm here for you guys?
Well, listen, let me preface what I'm going to say with this. I believe that my stance as a media personality in the city of Philadelphia, potentially could have fractured that. But you just listen. I know for a fact that when Joe Banner was there, that there were players that were in the media who played for the Eagles. You know, they got called in because they were being critical of things that was going on with the football team.
Seth, I got contacted from Bob Lang because I was too critical, and I'm not even an Eagle.
Well, but listen, my thing is, I don't have any ill will against the Eagles organization.
Of course not.
Listen, I'm one of their Hall of Fame players. I don't know how many there are, but I know there aren't that many. You know, I want the Eagles to win. I want them to win as many games as they can win, and I want them to win as many championships as they can win. You know, because as a former Eagle, and I find I played for, the Cardinals and the Broncos and the Packers, but guess what? I'm a freaking Eagle through and through. I could care less what those teams, what those other three teams are doing. You know, I'm an Eagle. I follow what they're doing, and I want them to do well. I want the city to revel in, the victories that not only the Eagles produce, but the Flyers, the Phillies, and the Sixers. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Seth, you're an Eagle. You'll always be.
But I got a job to do when I'm on air. And my job is to, in the most truthful manner, give people an analysis of what I see and what I believe. Okay. Now, there's times when the Eagles are playing well and many people don't bring it up, but I give them props. I give Nick Sirianni props. I've given Jonathan Gannon props throughout the year. I've given Howie Roseman props because guess what? He deserves it. But when the team was floundering, in between 2017 Super Bowl and the time that they fired Doug, they deserve criticism.
Of course.
And if you deserve criticism, it is what it is. And Dan, listen, my brand of analysis is based upon this. My mom taught me a long time ago. She said, son, always be truthful because you don't have to ever defend the truth. The truth is powerful enough to defend itself. She said, if you tell a lie, guess what? You got to defend it. You got to tell 10 more lies to cover the first one. And you're always in a position of trying to defend a lie. But what I say is my truth, okay? And if I'm wrong, I'm man enough to get on TV and say, hey, guys, guess what? I got it wrong, okay? I did it with Doug Peterson. When Doug Peterson was hired, I'm like, that's the worst hire that you could ever make. And then when I saw when Mike Lombardi said what he said about him and the way the players came to his defense, I was like, well, maybe I'm missing something. Let me step back and look at this from a different perspective. Because if those guys are following him and they believe in him, well, maybe I'm not in the locker room. Maybe I'm missing something. They believe in him, and they believed in him enough for him to lead them to a Super Bowl championship. Okay. But when I am analyzing the game of football, I'm analyzing it from my truth. And I would be less than the analyst that I am, and I wouldn't be true to myself if I did it any other way. So I'm not going to bite my tongue. I'm not going to bite my tongue to pacify the Eagles organization. The truth is the truth. And when they're playing well, I give them props. When they're not playing well, or I see things that I don't agree with, it's my job. I'm hired. I'm paid to do that.
Seth, you and I think we look at it the same way, maybe different takes. And I say this. Someone goes like this to me, Sills, you're flip-flopping. I'm going, no, I'm not flip-flopping. I'm going to tell you why. The performance of the players predicates my analysis or my take. If they're sucking at the beginning of the year and they're 2-5, and they make a transformation by handing the play calling off to someone else and they get better, it behooves me not to go, hey, they've made some improvements. They're getting better. Jalen's gotten better from point A to point Z where he is now. It's the old school way is to be set in your take or your analysis. I think what you and I do, we look at it going, hey, man, my analysis is going to be all formed around how the team plays. They're playing great. Great. Kudos to all. It's great. But when we start to see something wobble, I think that's the problem that we have. And again, I think we get to the same place, just different takes sometimes. And I don't think people can take that because you and I get this. I don't wake up in the morning going, hey, I think I'm going to shit on this guy or I think I'm going to shit on that guy. That's not what I do, man. I've never done that for the 35 years that I've been doing this. One last thing on the defense. What type of coordinator can you hire when you don't know what's coming back yet? I mean, your cornerback play, watch this. So you got a 32-year-old guy in Slate's making $18 million. This guy CJ made $826 last year, $826,000. He's projected to get $14.4. Bradbury's going to be a $15 million guy. What are you going to do with Hargrave? He's going to command $16 million. Both your backers. Are you sure? Are you sure Nakobe Dean could take over for Kaiser White? I'm not sure of that yet. Are you sure Jordan Davis can play 50 snaps? I mean, Seth, what kind of coordinator do you go out and look for when you're not sure what the pieces are on the chessboard?
You're 100% correct, because are you going to run the same style of defense that they ran last year, or are you moving, to a true 40 front?
They don't have the personnel for a 30 front.
Well, I don't believe that. I really don't believe in fronts anymore, because, the way that offenses dictate, to defenses, for the most part, you are a 4-2 front. Okay.
Yeah.
If you decide to go to a 5-man front and you play 2 linebackers, now you're deficient on the back end. So what most teams do is they'll go a 5-man front, 1 linebacker in, and if they need to drop a safety in the box every once in a while, they'll do that. They'll go to dime. But you saw the Chiefs in the second half. They ran the Eagles right out of that dime package.
Sure did.
In that first series. So you bring up a good point. But I think they're trying to figure it out as they go, to be honest with you. I don't think they really know. I think they're trying to find that guy who fits.
An analytical guy, Seth, an analytical guy, because like you said, what are you in the college ranks? Man, college football and pro ball, it's like the moon and the sun. I mean, there's no similarities between college football and NFL football. Everybody's great. Everybody. The windows are this. In college, Seth, the windows are like a barn door open. In pro ball, the windows are like this, man.
Yeah.
Every poor technique. It's all technique in that league, and it's all angles. What are you in the college ranks looking for? He don't know shit about pro ball. I mean, I don't get that.
I agree. I think you need, so you asked me, okay, would I, if the Eagles approach me, would I? Hell yeah. In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Because you want to know why? Because I think that the game of football isn't that different than it was when I played. There are some differences. And most people believe that, if Seth Joyner coaches, he'd make all the players quit.
Not true.
He couldn't get along, with a defensive staff. What kind of nonsense is that? I played in the National Football League on a team for 13 years. So, in other words, you're telling me that you believe that I can't be a team guy?
No, I think the front office, Seth, would have a problem. I think the players would gravitate to you. And that's what happened with Doug. They gravitated to him and not Howie. And that divide in the building became why they kicked, like you told me, he kicked the can down the road. Seth, if you're my coordinator, I'm going to be on you like Velcro going, Coach, what do I do here? Do I put my head on a 3 technique shade? What do you want me to do?
Dan, listen, players don't gravitate to a GM, man. They don't.
True.
Players take on the personality.
You're right.
Of the coach who's coaching them.
You're right.
Okay. And let me say this. Let me say this about the belief that, and I'm all for, a bit of emotional intelligence. Chip Kelly was a straight up, a-hole. When your players don't like you as a coach, then they're not going to go to war for you.
Right.
Okay. So you have to exhibit and show some emotional intelligence. You want to know your players, and you want your players. And I think that Nick Sirianni does a fantastic job of that. But I don't know a single player, a single great player that doesn't want to be coached hard if they really want to be great. Show me a player that doesn't want to be coached hard, that gets in his feelings, and I'll show you a player that ain't worth a shit, okay? Because I didn't mind. Some guys took offense to it. Buddy would talk about you in the paper. You can't even talk about these guys anymore because you're so afraid of, oh, he threw the players under the bus. No, he didn't. He was just real. The guy didn't get it done. When he plays well and you give him kudos, it's okay to give him kudos. But when he plays like shit, you're supposed to just like glaze it over. You're supposed to put, chocolate frosting on it. No, he played like shit. And he needs to be held accountable to the fact that he played like shit. And this is where the disconnect is, where people think that, I couldn't do that. It's like me when I coach my young kids, Dan. I got a three-time rule, okay? I tell you once, even let's go to 4. I'll take it to 4. I'll tell you once, I'll tell you twice. The third time I would take them, and what I wanted them to do, I would stand them in front of me, and I said, put your feet on my feet, okay? And I'm going to walk you through what I want you to do. And I would show them, okay? Physically show them. Now, when they don't get it right after that, then I pull them aside and say, we've got a communication problem. Either I'm not speaking a language that you understand, or you just don't care to do it the way that I'm asking you to do it. Plain and simple. It doesn't get any more different than that. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, Seth, completely. And just to expand on that, I remembered, man, Jimmy Johnson and Jerome, and Jimmy is on our shit. I mean, This has got to be this way. You guys gave up this. Finally, Jerome looked over at Jimmy and went, why are you always on us like this? Jerome, you know what Jimmy said to us? Hey, you two, worry when I'm not on your shit. And we just both went like this. Look, it was like a light bulb, Seth, going off. We both went like this. Oh, he goes, because don't let me tell you a third time, because you know what happens on the third time. There's a new dude in there.
So think about how profound that is, Dan. Because when you get for a collegiate player,
yeah,
okay, because when you get to the pro level, when the coach stops talking to you, your ass is on the way out the door.
It's over.
Okay. Now, when they're coaching you and they're on you, listen, I always wanted the coaches to be on me. I always wanted them to coach me hard because I always had the ability to take what I needed. And when Buddy was talking all crazy and whatnot, I let the good stuff that I needed go into my database.
Did you ever talk to Singletary on how Mike was dealt with Buddy? Did you guys ever have a conversation, or was it after the fact?
Yeah, it really was. It was after
he rode him hard too, right, Seth?
No, absolutely. I mean, he didn't drive him the way he drove me. He drove Byron the way he drove him, because the Mike backer had to like know everything, And if you rolled into, Wednesday's practice and you didn't have those AFCs, like we had automatic fronts and coverages for both, for every formation. So you had an automatic front and an automatic coverage and an automatic front and an automatic blitz for every coverage. So when a team came out, you had to look at the formation and make the call. Can you imagine memorizing that much stuff?
It's like a
quarterback. And if you didn't know it, and you couldn't memorize it, oh, he would roast you, man. He would roast you. I mean, and there would be times where Brian wouldn't remember it, and I would tell him, and he'd get on me. No. You don't tell him anything. He needs to know. It's his job to know that. I don't want you calling plays until third down when I signal them into you.
Wow.
So there's nothing wrong. If a player wants to be great, then he's not going to mind you critiquing him. He's not going to mind you riding him. It's the guys that don't want to be critiqued are the ones that worry me, because they're not willing to pay the price. And they're not willing to look at themselves in a way and say, guess what? I screwed up, coach. I got it wrong. I did it wrong. I'm not going to pass the buck. I'm not going to put the blame on somebody else. It was me. Now, coach, tell me what it is that I have to do to get better. If I don't have players that have that mindset, then how can you as a team be great? How can you be good? Because I'm going to give you everything I got. The same way that I played the game and the same way that I prepared for the game, I'm going to give you everything that I got. I'm going to give you a toolbox as a linebacker to be able to step out on that field, okay, and use these tools to help you get from point A to point B, to help you decipher what you're seeing, okay? Now it's up to you to use those tools to be the best player that you can be.
Well, before we get to something I know we're going to disagree on with Jalen, last thing I want to say to you here. If the Eagles came to you, you'd be open-minded to want to become the defensive coordinator of the Eagles. By the way, if you're interviewing a college guy, I would think it would be an insult, Seth, not to come to you next and at least have a conversation just out of respect, because if you're open for it, why wouldn't – I see Ken Dorsey's now the offensive coordinator up in Buffalo. I see other guys getting opportunities. Look at Ryans. He hasn't been in the league that long, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I like what he did in San Francisco, but he's no different than you, Seth. You could walk into that position the same way he walked into that position and be the coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, and you would even have connections on assistant coaches that you could recommend to people in the league that could help in the D-line. Not taking anything away from Tracy, but you'd be open to it.
Listen, I'm always open to, the conversation and, whatever it is that, makes an organization, call one guy. Like I see these ex-players that are being hired all over the place. Is it because, maybe I've never, formally coached in the National Football League? I went through the internship program in Buffalo with Rex. There's a lot that goes into it. I get it. Okay. But I think a defensive coordinator is only as good as the coaches that he has around him and the players that the GM gives him. Okay. If you give me enough weapons, okay, I got enough artillery to put them in the gun or in the barrel and fire them. Okay. No matter what it is. There are things that are in my mind. There are things that are in my mind from back when I played with Buddy. Like when I see teams come out, in 3 or 4 tight end sets and teams stay regular people, it drives me insane. It drives me insane. Why do you not have an extra backup package? Okay. I'm taking one cornerback out. Okay. I'm going to put him over the tight end on the strong side. I got 2 middle backers. I'm going to kick one backer out on the tight end on the weak side. And then I'm going to drop a safety in the box. And I got a 7-man, 8-man front. Try to run if you want to. Okay. You're going nowhere because I got every gap covered and I got a free hitter to the ball. And I'm not worrying about tight ends beating me because I got one corner on your best tight end. I got another safety on the other tight end, and both backers are going to jam the tight ends outside in to make sure that when they release, okay, we got coverage. So come on and try to run the ball. But teams will line up under man all day long and get their asses handed to them, get the ball ran straight up there behind and wonder why they couldn't. And I'm like, it's simple. All of that stuff is right here. And I got the playbook. And I still got the playbook. I got all of that stuff.
That's great.
Okay? I can take you from a 5-man front to a 4-man front while the quarterback is in a snap count, screw up the entire blocking scheme.
Wait a minute, Seth, you got Buddy Ryan's playbook?
Dan, not only do
Dude,
I
you
have it
could
sitting
print
over here
that.
on my bookshelf, not only do
Dog.
I have it sitting over here on my bookshelf,
Jesus
I got it
Christ.
in my head. There's not a defensive call that I still don't have in my head. I can get up on a whiteboard right now and draw it all up. Draw it all up.
Well, you need to be in this conversation for the defensive coordinator's position, at least a conversation to hear you. I mean, I'm just saying, a college guy, Seth Joyner, I'm sorry, but my players are going to want to be coached by you. Now, we're going to get over to a topic that I think we're going to disagree on. I'm going to ask you something here about Jalen Hurts. Do you think Jalen Hurts can win a Super Bowl with a lesser talented roster? At $50 million, when you know you're going to have to deplete probably a third of the roster because of salary, like they did in Kansas City, like they did in Green Bay, like they did with every single – look, Tyreek Hill. There's a less – that Super Bowl team, Seth, in Kansas City is a lesser team than the first Super Bowl they won when they had Honey Badger, Houston, when they had a different line. They had a running game. They had Tyreek Hill. They had Jason Kelce. They had Travis Kelce and a bunch of dudes that beat that roster. And Andy Reid play calling. Do you think Jalen Hurts could take that team in Kansas City without Andy to a Super Bowl and win? I don't see it.
So let me say this. Whether people
that means you'd have to take AJ and Devontae and Miles Sanders and 2 O-linemen off that team, and Jalen would have to take that team to the Super Bowl.
No,
because
you don't.
when you start paying the quarterback, Seth, and you know this, the league wants
you don't
parity.
You don't, and you can't, because guess what? You've got Devontae locked into the third year of a 4-year contract, rookie deal. You just traded for and got AJ. Okay, he's locked into a 4-year, $100 million deal. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Dallas Goedert just signed a new deal, a year and a half ago. He's not going anywhere. The offensive line, the only guy that you're going to lose over there on the offensive side of the ball is Kelce if he retires, or say Amalo. Okay, where the team is going to be purged is on the defensive side of the ball. Because I can tell you this, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman believe that you have to have a dominant offense in order to win in the National Football League.
I agree. Today's league, you do, Seth.
So they are not going to take weapons away from a guy that they're about to pay $40-50 million a year. The guys that are going to get hurt are the guys on the other side of the ball. So now what does Jalen have to do? And this is where it's going to come, Howie's going to have to work some magic to replenish, 75% of the talent on the defensive side of the ball at minimum salaries. Okay.
Yeah.
Or
rookie deals.
And then you're going to have to bring in a defensive coordinator. Okay. That if you will, that can be more productive. And I'm not just talking about from a sack standpoint, but can be more productive overall. Because if you look at the Eagles, the only time that they really created turnovers is when guys either strip sacked the quarterback or they blitzed and they got a turnover off of it. You didn't see a lot of fumble recoveries from anybody but the guys up front. You didn't see a whole lot of interceptions. When they were a little more aggressive earlier in the year, when they were playing against lesser teams, they were getting the turnovers. They were getting the interceptions and things of that nature. But as they became more and more passive, Dan, you can go back the last 7-8 games of the season. You didn't see a whole lot of interceptions. You didn't see a whole lot of big plays. You just saw sacks and abundance. So what I'm saying is that the defense is going to have to be, more cognizant of how can we turn the ball over.
You think more like Kansas City's defense, Seth? That's what it's going to have to look like, kind of like like that a little bit because they got Chris Jones, and get this, Seth, they got 2 rookies at the corner position. And, I mean, there was 9 guys at one time or another this year that were rookies or free agents that started for him. And when you pay the quarterback $45 million and you pay the tight end, Orlando Brown, they probably have big money in too. Seth, man, that money, it's only a $224 million cap.
Hey, listen,
I mean, you're losing people.
The beauty is, listen, Howie knew that this was coming. You know, they screwed the pooch by not winning this Super Bowl because this was really their window.
It was.
You know, so he knew full well that, you know, Fletcher might be done. Brandon Graham might be done. Both of your starting linebackers are on expiring deals. Okay,
you got one corner.
Safety. You got a safety and a corner on a 1-year deal. So he knew exactly what it was that he was up against. But my point is, you know, they got to pay him because that's market value. The guy just, you know, there's a list of quarterbacks. You know, I saw the list that you put up of all of those quarterbacks that they paid and how it blew up in their face. You want to know the difference between those guys and Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts got his team to the Super Bowl. Okay? He might not have won. It was no fault of his own.
No.
The guy played his ass off.
No, he was spectacular.
Okay? You couldn't have asked for him to do more.
No, he was spectacular, Seth.
He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. The defense let them down, you know? So as long as the offense continues to look the way that they do, and you know what? He's going to be better next year. You want to know why? Because he is going into the third year of being in the offense for the first time since he was in high school. And I have a rule about players, okay? Give me 3 years with a player. Give me 3 years to develop him. You want to know why? Because barring any arrestment to his development, if he's on the field playing, okay, and he's on the field playing 3 years in a row, he gets an opportunity to see everything, to learn everything, and to react and to react and change to everything. Okay. Now, if he plays for 3 years, he's on the field, and you don't see the improvement after 3 years, it's highly likely he ain't gonna improve. It's highly likely.
Seth,
but Jalen Hurts isn't that guy. Jalen Hurts is going to continue to get better. And as he continues to get better, if they figure out a replacement for Quez Watkins that can really stretch the field, so Devin Allen, they signed him, right?
Yep.
Why did they sign him? For speed. But he hadn't played football in like 3-4 years. So they've been working with him. If they can put him in Quez's position and he can be what Quez couldn't be, you know how explosive that damn offense is going to be? So the offense is going to have to score more points, and the defense is going to have to figure out a way to be 75% better, or at least 75% of what they was this year. They don't need 70 sacks. They need more turnovers.
Here's the comparison that I'm making with the development of Jalen if you pay him. Go back and let's just say the ceiling is Russell Wilson, early Seattle. He was spectacular, but he was on a rookie deal and a 3rd-round deal, kind of like Jalen was on this 2nd-round deal. They could pay the Cam Chancellors. They could pay the Michael Bennett's, the Richard Shermans. That defense was loaded. When they started paying them, they had the Marshawn Lynch's. When they started paying them, what happened? The center goes to New Orleans. They lose a tackle. Bennett's out. They lose Sherman. They lose Cam Chancellor. They start losing all those players. And the best it ever got for Russell Wilson was on his rookie deal. My contention to you is if you pay him 50, Seth, last year is the best it's ever going to be for him. Because that defense is never going to have the kind of playmakers because of money, because of the salary cap, Seth. It's never going to be what it was this past season.
Well, listen, the salary cap is going to continue to go up. You know, the salary cap is jumping, 12 to 12 to
It went
almost 20,
16 million this year.
$16 million. So that helps.
It did.
Then you got these expiring contracts that will help. You know, at the end of the day, the defense might not be as good as it was last year. Okay. But I don't think the Eagles' offense really hit its full stride. Okay. They may have to be an offense like Kansas City now that when you get rolling, you better score points and you better score them in abundance because we don't know what those guys on the other side might do. Now, that's what the salary cap presents. It's up to Howie to go and replenish the offense, the defense rather, with as much talent as he can with the amount of money that he has. Okay. I'll say this about Russell Wilson. Okay. Russell Wilson's success was off of that defense.
It was.
Okay. By the time he started losing his players, Dan, those guys were like on the back end of their careers anyway. They didn't have anything left. You could see the Legion of Doom was already done. They were.
So they had like a 3-year window, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, listen, it took them time to build to get there.
Yeah.
And then once you get there and you build and you get there and then you win the first Super Bowl, yeah, you're going to start losing some guys because, you know, you're going to have expiring contracts in that year of the Super Bowl, just like the Eagles are experiencing right now. Some of those guys are going to walk and you're going to have to replenish. Are some of those guys going to be as good as the guys that you let walk? Probably not, you know. And those other guys are going to continue to get, you know, less and less effective as age becomes a factor. And then you start to look for those replacements. And as you look for those replacements, you come to the realization that, God, that guy was really special. That guy was really good. Because we've drafted 2 different guys at that same position. And if you roll the 2 of them up together, they're still half of what he is.
That linebacker was great that they had on that team.
Bobby Wagner was unbelievable. The guy next to him wasn't really all that bad, you know? But when they started to deteriorate and the guy next to him left, you know, how many linebackers have they drafted to try to fit in with him? True. And then they finally got to a place where it was like, okay, we need to pull this money off the table. It's time for us to let him go. He leaves and he goes to the Rams, you know? And that's just a move that you have to make. That is the cycle of teams, you know. But while you got this young quarterback who's going into his 4th year, and you got all of this talent around him, I'm telling you, they are not going to take resources from him. The resources are going to be taken from the defensive side of the ball, and that's why I say you better go and get a defensive coordinator who knows what the hell he's doing. Because you go and you bring in somebody from the college ranks, you know, that's learning on the go. The offense is going to score 35, but the defense is going to turn around and give up 45.
Yeah. Hey, Seth, last question here for you. The problem that, and again, I said this to people, I don't care if you pay Jalen Hurts $50 million a year. My problem is that there's no history, Seth, of dual threat quarterbacks with high ceiling. I mean, all these guys get hurt. Shit, Hurts has been hurt the last 2 years. You're going to miss games. Look at Lamar, Kyler Murray, RG3. There's a plethora and a list of even Michael Vick played 1 year, Seth, in his 16 years when he was on the field, the full 16 games. So when you're talking these long-term deals for a dual threat guy, there's no history that shows these guys last. Why should the Eagles get into a 7-year contract with a player? Tony Dungy was on yesterday and says it's risky putting that out there and putting 7 years and a signing bonus wrapped around that. What's your stance on that?
Listen, Dan, no football player, including quarterbacks, are immune from being hurt. Okay? You can't mitigate that. The era of the pocket quarterback is just about dead. Okay, Tom Brady is retiring.
Rodgers is almost out.
Matt Ryan is probably going to be pushed out.
Yep.
Okay, And what I'll tell you about Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts already changed the narrative. And this is why I'll say that. Because the narrative was can't win a Super Bowl, can't get to a Super Bowl with a running quarterback. Okay? He already changed that narrative.
He did.
Okay? In the Super Bowl, the kid threw for 300 yards.
No, he was spectacular.
Okay, so Jalen is not the type of guy that just takes off and run. I don't equate him to a Cam Newton. I don't equate him to RG3. I don't equate him to, these other guys, because you know what he can do is he can throw the football. Okay, and he's smart enough now to know, and usually, and I'll tell you this, continue to watch his progression. I always say a smart quarterback learns, okay? When they're running all over the place, it takes one hit that hurts them for them to understand, I'm too important to the team. I got to get my ass down, okay? I got to live to play another day, okay? And I'll tell you this, if you look at quarterbacks, Josh Allen got hurt, where? In the pocket. Patrick Mahomes got hurt, where? In the pocket. There are just as many guys that get hurt in the pocket as the guys that get hurt out of the pocket. As a guy who has the ability, that when all goes to hell in a handbasket to create and make a big play, okay? He's just got to be smart enough to say, hey, you know what? I've got to get down. I've got to know when to take a hit and when not to take a hit.
Seth, 200 carries is way too much, though. He was on pace for 200 carries. He had 165. I mean, you're asking. It's just a matter of time, though.
But
you have that amount of carries.
But if you're going to run this type of offense, okay, if you're going to run the RPO and the read option, then this is what you get. It's not necessarily that the Eagles are calling that play.
Agreed. It's his decision making.
The defense is dictating it.
Exactly.
It's like I say, if I was a defensive coordinator, playing against Jalen Hurts, I make him hand it off every single time. Every single time he went read option, I'd have my end crash.
Amen.
I would completely take you out of that part of your offense, because you're not going. The only thing you're going to do, the only thing you can do is the R. I'm taking the PO away. Only thing you can do is read. There's not going to be no option because I'm taking it away. The minute you stick it out, bam, come on down. Put him on his ass, okay? And make him hand that ball off. So now we eliminate all that other stuff, okay? But my point is that the defense is dictating. The defense is dictating that he takes the ball and he runs with it. So you watch these. There's a couple of games this year. I believe it was the Detroit game and maybe the Colts game. And I could be wrong on the Colts game, but I know that the Detroit game, the first game of the year, he had 17 carries.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "Oh, that's too many carries." And I'm like, well, there's two things going on here. You've got a read option and RPO, where the defense dictates whether he runs it, hands it off, or throws it, okay? And then when you go straight drop back, if guys are covered, you got the benefit of him. So those are all considered run plays, So the run plays, in my opinion, his carries are a little conflated because there are times where a pass play is called and nothing's open, and he's got to turn around and he's got to take off and make something happen. And man coverage is great because guess what? He's going to make 15, 20 yards before the defense can even react to him. The tough part is when it's zone, being able to scramble horizontal to the line of scrimmage and allow his guys to, the deep guys to come back and the shallow guys to turn it up and go deep. But I'm telling you right now, he is only going to get better in the passing game. And the Eagles, I'm telling you, Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, they don't really want to run the ball. I'm telling you right now.
So Sanders is not a loss to them. Seth, Sanders is not a loss to them then.
No. And listen, let me finish that and then I'll get on Sanders. Sirianni doesn't really want to run the ball as much as he runs it. They want to throw the ball, okay? But the strength is the offensive line and the fact that when you run the ball, it opens up everything else in your offense, okay? Even your RPO game, when you ride that ball down in there and you're looking at that linebacker, I mean, if you go back to the San Francisco game, Fred Warner, they ran a play to the left, and Fred Warner was the left. You saw it when he was just standing there.
Hey,
like,
I thought it was a
doing?
poor
Get to the
read.
ball. But
I
he
know.
knows that Jalen's riding, and he's looking at him like,
Almost
Fred,
broke
if you
his
take
ankles.
one step,
He froze
if you
him.
take, he's like, if you take one step to the right, I'm gonna hit this slant to AJ Brown behind you.
Yep.
You know, that's what this part of the offense does. But I think the more he learns, you know, he's a much better passer this year than he was last year. He's going to be an even better passer, Dan, come next year. Okay. He's going to be able to get up to the line of scrimmage even more and be like, check, 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 because he's getting what he wants to see and he's understanding what he wants to see. And now, you know, he can be a more prolific passer of the football, which means that, hey, maybe he doesn't have to throw as much. He don't have to run as much as he did this year. But listen, I put it in our comments when we were going back and forth on Twitter about it. I said, Dan, and this is what I say to people, because the first thing that I hear is, oh, you know, the Eagles need to see if they can get him at a hometown discount. And I'm like, second round draft pick.
Yeah, he's already at a hometown discount.
Exactly. Okay. So then my question is, if I was Jalen Hurts or I was Jalen Hurts' dad, okay, would I consider taking a hometown discount when everybody else is getting paid?
No way.
Hell no, I'm not taking a discount. Okay. I just got done in my third year taking a team to the Super Bowl when everybody else thought that it was my year to prove that I could even be a quarterback in the National Football League. I took my team to the Super Bowl and did enough for us to win. The defense let us down, okay? So why should I take less when everybody else is getting paid? And a lot of guys on that list, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, there's a lot of guys on that list. Derek Carr.
Yeah.
They haven't even come close to getting to a Super Bowl.
Kirk Cousins.
So you mean to tell me that my worth isn't at least more than what those guys are?
My point, Seth, was that those deals don't work, but one.
Hey, listen, it almost you never know.
Doesn't work.
If it could work for Mahomes, why can't it work for Jalen Hurts if they give him everything else around him that he needs? If you go and you get you a defensive coordinator along the lines of a Steve Spagnuolo, okay, and you continue to evolve as a offensive play caller and as an offense with a quarterback that's just going to get better, you know, in what he does, why can't he be the next guy? He just falls short this year.
Keep that offense. Don't do what they did to Deshaun Watson by getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins and sending him to Arizona. Keep these pieces around him for his development. And if there's going to be some suffering, tell me if I'm wrong here, the suffering will be on defense, but you got to have a coordinator on that side of the ball that's going to be like a Dan Quinn that can put pieces together instead of having to go out and get Sue and Joseph. You got to have a schematically smart coordinator instead of a plug-and-play coordinator like Gannon. Is that fair?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. He's got to have an idea about what he wants to do defensively and how he wants to stress offenses. See, offenses are always trying to stress defenses. They stress you with personnel. They stress you with coverage breakers. You know, they stress you in a myriad of different ways. They stress you with all this motion and shifting. And that's really designed to play tricks on your eyes because you don't believe what you see. You know, but what a good coach does is say, okay, here are your keys. Read your keys. Your keys never lie to you. There's maybe 5% of the time that they'll pull everybody left and hand the ball off right. The Eagles do it. I seen Miles Sanders do it this year, you know, and they do that to screw with you. But if I'm if my guys are studying film the way that they need to, okay, then you can vet out those anomalies offensively, okay, in film study and preparation. But 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, offensive linemen are telling you what the play is. They tell you whether it's run or pass. They tell you whether the ball is going right or left. They give you all that information. You just got to have coaches who understand how to give that information to the guys so the guys know what they're looking at. I saw TJ Edwards in the game. And I saw him in the Super Bowl, Dan. They're in a 5-man front, okay? Play side, he's A gap. Front side, A gap. Anything away from play side, he's a free hitter to the ball. They don't have enough blockers to block him. They snap the ball, and all of a sudden, because they are trained to read the running back, if you can believe that, because he's looking in the backfield, he can't see the running back.
False step.
So guess what he does? Now you're in a position where you got to guess, okay? He would have been better off guessing on the error of,
strong side,
the play side A gap, and then coming back.
Right.
But what he did is he guessed back here, and they got gashed on the other side. And listen, he guessed right, and all the offensive linemen were moving left. Just because the running back stepped right. The quarterback and the running back are the greatest liars on the offensive side of the ball, and you got coaches that are teaching these guys to read the running back. Are you freaking kidding me?
Read your technique, right, Seth? Old school guys tell you this. The ball lies to you every play. Read your technique in front of you. It will always take you to the ball. The ball takes you away from the play. And if you know that, like you said, Seth, you can cheat. If you ever want to cheat to the wide side and play side. You got the sideline on this side. If I make a false step, I can get back there to that other side because I have the sideline. That's coordinator talking to you, Seth, like yourself going, hey, if you're going to error on a side, error on the wide side of the field, okay? Because you can always make it up coming back because you got another defender on this side of the ball. Seth, last question for you, I swear here. If you're Jalen Hurts, and I started the show up by saying this, Daniel Jones made Jalen Hurts yesterday $10 million because if you're going to pay that guy, Seth, $35 to $40 million, what are you going to pay? Jalen just sat back and he made himself $10 million doing shit, right? And I'm like, okay, do you wait for the process with Herbert, Burrow to do you wait for those guys to kind of set the market? Lamar Jackson, I would say too. Or do you want to get to the table as quick as you can to help the roster out? And maybe that's kind of the hometown cooking. You get to the plate first so that the roster can get set and how he can start working his magic. What do you think how this plays out?
Hey, listen, there's a couple of different train of thoughts. The first train of thought is, like you said, get your money. The minute you sign that contract, you're going to get a big bonus. If that means something to you, then that's what you do. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem like that type of kid to me. And then there's, okay, let's look at the value, okay? Because if you're going to give this guy a 6-7 year deal, okay, you don't want your deal to be obsolete in year 3, where everybody else behind you is so far ahead of you money-wise, and you're just killing it.
Look at Mahomes. He's already under market value. He's at 42 now.
Hey, listen, but Mahomes is fine because he's going to get all $500 million of those dollars and then some. Nobody's worrying. He's in a category all by himself because when the team says, "Hey, we're going to give you $500 million over 10 years," okay,
I'm in.
Come on. No one's worried about that. But when you see these quarterbacks jockeying for position and everybody's trying to figure out why, because they know, like Jalen Hurts is eligible. They don't have to re-sign him, but they're going to re-sign him because that's the right thing to do. But you got Joe Burrow this coming up. Herbert this coming up. You got Lamar Jackson is coming up.
Yep.
Okay.
Tua.
And Jalen Hurts has done something that, that all of those guys, with the exception of Burrow, haven't done. Okay, so where should he fall? Everybody's trying to figure out. It's the same metrics that the teams use to figure out your value as a player. You should be using those same metrics.
But
Like,
it's
I can
1 year,
remember
Seth.
when
Do you think that's a problem? Because after Wentz, everyone was sold on Wentz, Seth, that he was the future of the team, so much so they gave him the extension. Are you concerned? Look, I agree with you. I think he's going to get better too. But 1 big year, do you give him? Is it worth $50 million because of 1 year and the team accomplishment of getting to the Super Bowl? What's the metric on that?
Listen, he's not Carson Wentz in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
Then
Okay?
why'd they give him the extension?
They gave it to him because he was a second-round overall pick. They moved up to draft him. He showed that he had MVP material and DNA inside of him. And I think the worst thing that happened to Carson Wentz was Nick Foles. Yeah, quite honestly, it was Nick Foles. Nick Foles takes over the team. The majority of the team is in love with Nick Foles. Nick Foles not only takes the team to the Super Bowl after Carson got in position, but he wins the Super Bowl and he wins the MVP. The city of Philadelphia hadn't had a Super Bowl in the modern Super Bowl era, 57 years. And all of a sudden, he's the darling, not Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. Okay? So then what happens? Carson comes back the next year, okay? Nick gets off to a rough start. The team is 1-3, fresh off a Super Bowl win. And Carson's chomping at the bit. He wants to get back in because he sees his opportunity to reassume his rightful position. And that was his rightful position. They drafted him to be the guy for the next 10, 12 years, okay? And I said right then and there, I said, Carson's coming back too early. Okay? He's coming back too early. He's not ready. Because it's one thing to get physically healed. It's another thing to get mentally or psychologically healed. And there was no way in that little short span of time that after 4 games he was ready, or 3 games he was ready to come back and get on the field.
You think they rushed him back?
No, I don't think they rushed him back. I think he rushed himself back. Okay? And because they signed him to that deal and they gave him they ceded so much power, he forced their hand. Okay, now, cracks the back. Now he's out again. And then he comes back the next year. And finally they ship Nick Foles off. Now, what is Carson trying to do? Carson, from the time that Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, Dan, his mindset was, I got to win another Super Bowl because I want Philadelphia to love me the way that they love Nick Foles, okay? So he's fighting the ghost of Nick Foles all his career. Doesn't want to compete with Jalen Hurts, wants to be a starter, wants to be the guy, wants it to just give it to him. So they give it to him. Falls flat on his face, okay? Falls flat on his face. And the reason why this guy can't get right, because he's always been trying to make the big play, always trying to do too much, because he's fighting the ghost of Nick Foles. And it literally has ruined his career. That's not Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has a completely different DNA. The guy says all the right things. He does all the right things. He acts all the right ways. He's a leader of men, and that's what drove Carson insane when they brought him in, because he could see that. He could see that Jalen possessed those leadership skills that he didn't, that those guys would follow him, and there were guys that didn't like the way that he went about his business and would not follow him. So I have no reservations. This is where it's going. What the NFL really needs to do, Dan, is they need to create a separate cap just for the quarterbacks, and a cap for the rest of the players. And that way teams can stay in a position where, they can remain competitive even after you pay the quarterbacks, But I mean, I don't know, to watch these salaries, I'm happy these guys get paid.
No,
know,
it's
I
not
want
these guys, Seth. It's the quarterbacks. And to me, I would like the quarterbacks to do this for me and you, Seth. I would like this. Hey, I love that the quarterbacks are getting all this guaranteed money, but when are the offensive linemen, the D tackles, the cornerbacks? I mean, it's totally the award for MVP is now a quarterback. Hey, I get all that. I get they're the face of the franchise. They're the TV stars. But Seth, you never see a quarterback holding out anymore. You know why? They get the money, they get the
you
years.
don't have to.
They don't have to. Okay. And so what they do is, I think the salaries for the quarterbacks actually hurt the league and the players, the rest of the players. The wide receivers are kind of like an appendage to the quarterbacks. And that's why you're seeing that position. Seth, when you and I were growing up, those guys were seen and not heard coming across the field. Now they're big mouth divas. There's no look at do you know that the salary cap, Seth, for the franchise tag, the least position is running back. When you and I were in the game, the league was running back. And the quarterback kind of was the dude off the running back. If you didn't have Eric Dickerson, you didn't have anybody. And so you're looking around now and you're going, when are these quarterbacks going to stand up for the rest of the league and guaranteed contracts? Our union is so pathetic with that when it comes to standing up. And look, I like DeMar Smith. I mean, I like him, but he's pathetic, like man, when it comes to the rest of the players.
Dan, I don't like him. I don't like him. You want to know why I don't like him?
Because he's in Goodell's pocket.
He's sold the players out.
He ain't Gene Upshaw.
Never in the history of the National Football League has there ever been a 10-year collective bargaining agreement.
Insane.
It's really 11 if you really stop and think about it, because they signed it, after year 9. Okay. And then 2 weeks later, the NFL turned around and signed all these TV deals and the Amazon deals. And it's like, do you realize how much money, how much you have set these players back by a 10-year collective bargaining agreement? And now he's talking about he wants to waltz off to the sunset and retire. Man, excuse me, fuck you, D. Smith, because you screwed these players. You left so much money on these players, on the table from these players. It makes no sense whatsoever. And the only and listen, I give the NFL a lot of credit. They're either smarter than DeMaurice Smith, or they got DeMaurice Smith in their pocket. Smarter because they realize that, hey, okay, the players have to vote for any kind of collective bargaining agreement, right?
Which is a sham anyway.
So what are we going to do? We're going to give money to the lower third of the NFL because that's the majority of the players. And guess what? We're going to get enough votes for this 10-year collective bargaining agreement. Okay. And DeMaurice Smith co-signed it instead of saying, guys, wait a minute. We know that the TV contracts are up. We know that Amazon is about to sign a deal with the National Football League. We know that all of these gambling sites and the casinos are now in bed with the National Football League. That damn salary cap shouldn't be $220 million. It should be damn near $250 million. Then we ain't having a conversation about
Seth,
Jalen
how
Hurts
does
and his
the cap go down during the pandemic, but revenues go up? And the cap went down for the players' salaries because, like you said, that cap should be 265 right now. It shouldn't be 224. So the NFL owners stuck it to us. Brady was the first to mention it. He goes, so wait a minute. Revenues are up across the board, and so are team values across the board. Why is salary cap going down?
Dan,
that's DeMar Smith.
Let me tell you something. I understand the COVID year where it went down. But the year where they almost went on strike and the NFL was like, oh, we're losing money. We've got to pull some money back off the table. And I was like, is it me? Or is it just, everybody is just dumbasses? Okay. The salary cap is based on overall revenues, a percentage of the overall revenues.
Yeah.
The revenues are going up. So all you got to do is look at the revenues. If the revenues go up, that means that the salary cap should go up. It's almost an impossibility for the revenues to go up and the salary cap to go down. But we got this dialogue going on between the players union and the NFL about how they're losing money. And I'm like, what is going on with y'all? Are you really that dense? Can you possibly be that stupid?
Hey, Seth, I'm still waiting for my 1987 4 checks that they promised they would give us back. Boy, we're hey, Seth, you've been awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this, brother. I mean, dude, I love our back and forth. And by the way, I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna tell Tracy Rocker tonight, because Tracy was a former teammate of mine, and I'm gonna go, man, you guys got to give Seth Joyner a call. You got to give him a call. And he's not politicianing for it, but I am, because I know you'd make a great DC for that team. Because let me tell you this, now that you told me they're talking to the guy at Michigan, come on, dude, Michigan, who they beat? Purdue and Northwestern? Give me a break. Hey, Seth, listen, Purdue and Northwestern.
Then I'll go a step further. If the circumstances are right, and Philadelphia is the only team that I might do this for, if the circumstances are right, I'll come in and be the linebackers coach.
Wow.
If the circumstances are right, because you know what, I have a passion for the game. Okay. And if I can, if I can have input, which I think is, should be synonymous when all the coaches are sitting around, putting together game plans and having conversations, if I can have input, and I'm not saying that I always have to be right and my way has to be the only way. Okay. But if I can have input, or if I have a voice that's heard, then yeah, I would do it.
Hey, Tone, I want this cut up for Twitter, and I'm going to send it over to people.
Don't start no shit, Dan.
Oh, no. You know me, Seth. I'm going to start a ton of shit when I get off this damn show tonight. It's going to be front page, and you can. By the way, if I'm calling Peter King, I'm telling Peter King. Peter goes, because Peter watches the show. I'm sending this soundbite. So, Seth, if you have input, okay, into the new D coordinator, you would be willing to come in first and listen.
No. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the Eagles should confer with me about who they should hire.
I get it. You would be you just want to put the defense.
Yeah, if the opportunity was afforded to me, it would have to be with someone, who I believe
compatible with,
who I believe, compatible with, mindset, all of those types of things. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when we as a defensive staff sit down, that suggestions and comments and things that I make, are part of the conversation, Now, I'm not saying that I should come in and have a voice and tell everybody what to do and how to do it and when to do it and all that kind of stuff. I get that. I understand, but no one wants to coach and not have a voice. No one wants to coach and not be able to coach their players on the techniques and the fundamentals and all the things, that they believe can help make that player a better player. So, I mean, there has to be some philosophical, synergies as well, because I'm not going to let my guys, eyeball the running back. I'm going to teach you how to have expanded vision. Okay. When you line up, we're going to key through the uncovered lineman to the quarterback to the running back. And if you can't expand your vision to see all of that, then we got a problem. Whether I got to send you somewhere to work with an eye specialist or whatever it is, but you need to be able to see it all because, I'm looking at the lineman. The lineman tells me whether it's run or pass. Then my vision goes to the quarterback to the back. That's pretty simple. I don't need to lock in on one guy. It's a progression. The same way a quarterback goes through a progression, a defensive player, if I'm playing safety, what's my key? If I'm single high, I'm reading through the center to the quarterback. If I'm playing strong safety, okay, and I'm in a cover 2 look, but I'm going to drop down in a cover 3 look, I'm keying the tight end. The tight end's going to tell me whether it's run or pass. So I want to know what the hell he's doing. And I'm going tight end, quarterback, and offensive line. I'm trying to see if he releases right now, I know it's past. So then I can get to my responsibility where I need to be. If I see him blocked down, first thing I want to know are pullers coming. If I got pullers coming, I got to get up and support. I mean, all of those things are just, to me, they are just fundamentals of football. Okay.
Okay.
I would love to take I would love to take all of that, and put it into a young player that wants it, that wants to get better, that wants to dominate and master his skill set, but the situation's got to be right. If the situation ain't right, dude, hey, listen, I make pretty good money to work for 5-6 months out of the year. I get to come home, hang out with my kids, get with my lovely lady. I play golf. We travel. I'm going to Europe in June for 2 or 3 weeks. Life is good, man. Life is good. People think that I don't smile. I'm smiling. My behind is smiling. My life is so good. Don't ever think for 1 second that Seth Joyner is miserable or that life ain't good for me. My life is so blessed, it's ridiculous, okay? It's ridiculous. I work 5-6 months out of the year and I live life in vacation. If I'm going to give all of that up, it better be for a good reason. And if it ain't for the right reason, just not going to do it, man.
See, Seth, that's the most important thing that you've always done in your life, though, it seems to me. You've never chased a paycheck or the dollar. You've chased your passion. And when you chase your passion, Seth, it's going to give you rewards in millions because you're a satisfaction kind of guy. If you think that this is something good for you, to me, and that's what makes you genuine too. And so that's why everything you've touched has been successful. And I want everybody to do me a favor. Go on Twitter and put a hashtag, hire Seth Joyner.
Don't do it. Don't stir him up over there.
Oh, listen, stir him up. You're talking to the stirrer.
I know. I will tell you this, Dan.
I'm Jerome Brown 2.0, dude. You know that.
I will tell you this. As far as players are concerned, I've always believed that there's 3 kinds of players. And that's why it's so hard to win in the NFL when you got 53 guys on the roster, and 10, 12 practice squad guys?
19.
Is it 19 practice squad guys?
Seth, it's 19 practice squad guys.
Wow.
You got 60 dudes. When you and I played, it was 47. Shit, you'd have played until you were 55 if you were in the league today. I mean, wow. It's 19 practice squad guys and 53. Whew. That's 62 dudes.
Jeez. So my point is that it's hard to get a good mixture of guys everybody will say, I want to win a championship, want to win a Super Bowl, but not everybody's motivations are the same. That's why I say there's three different type of players. You have the player who plays for the notoriety. Okay. Everywhere he goes, he likes to let everybody know that he plays for the Philadelphia Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs or the New York Giants or whoever it is. He wants to just be known. He likes that. Okay. Then you have the player that plays strictly for the money. Okay. He doesn't last because what he doesn't realize is that once you start making big money, you got to perform every single year, or they're going to come to you and be like, hey, we need you to take a pay cut. Okay. And then you got the guy that plays because he wants to be the champion. Okay. And he'll do whatever's necessary to be a champion. And he understands that when you become a champion, certain amount of guys are going to make plenty of money. Okay. If your team can't pay you, there's another team out there that'll give you the bag. You understand what I'm saying? But the only thing he's concerned with is how to be the best version of himself and how to win a championship. Because if he wins a championship, he knows that certain percentage of the guys on the team who perform well over the year and in that Super Bowl, they're going to get paid. Now, the hard part is, how do you find more of those guys that play to be champions than you do the guy that plays for the money and the guys that plays for the notoriety? It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And it's hard to vet them out because, the whole process of how you evaluate players, They've gamed it. You know, guys go to the combine now. They drop out of classes once the season is over. Okay, they're working on their 40. They're working on their weights. They're working on their broad jump. They're working on their vertical. They go in. They game the system. They have a hell of a day at the combine, and all of a sudden, all the people who are evaluating these players, they're like, "Oh my God, did you see his numbers?" Guy shoots up the draft board because he's gamed. But my question is, okay, there's no metric to measure what's in here.
Yeah, but Seth, don't you think you would have more impact when you're evaluating the college guy? Because to me, like Alonzo Highsmith's a dear friend of mine, and he goes and looks at a kid, and he don't look at 5-star. Wouldn't it be better for you in the pro personnel area going like this? Let me go look at a kid. You know what Clyde Simmons and Jerome Brown and Reggie White and Wes Hopkins and Andre Waters, Seth Joyner, all these guys. You know what all these guys and the intangible that you can't put in a metric when you're at the combines. Wouldn't you be more in tune with finding the talent, Seth, instead of coaching the talent? I mean, to me, I think you could do both, man. I mean, if Jason Kelsey can help Howie Roseman when it comes to picking out what kind of linemen, they're awesome at picking linemen out in Philly. They're awesome because they have Jeff Stoutland.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in that building too, Seth, how are you not an asset going, hey, look at this kid from UTEP. Let's try him out in the 6th round. I think there's something there about the kid. He may be a little undersized, but look at the way the kid works. People tell me this guy's an animal on the field, and this guy can really pretty much do everything. Cover tight ends, and he's a gap filler. Let's take him in the 5th or 6th. I don't know, Seth. Sounds like somebody I know. Listen,
Dan, I will tell you this. The one thing I learned, you know, being around Buddy all my years is that Buddy knew talent. I mean, he could look at a guy like, you know, and I kind of sponged some of that off of him. Like I can watch a player in warmups. I can almost watch a player walk and tell you whether he can play or not, you know. But it's the intangibles because, like I said, they can game the system, and you can't measure what's in here, and you can't measure what's up here because the Wonderlic test. I played with guys who bombed the Wonderlic test and got on the football field and were football savants. You understand what I'm saying? Andre Waters wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. But that dude was a football savant, man. I'm telling you right now. Okay. So I would take it even further. You know, if I'm scouting, it's one thing for me to go and the player knows I'm there. I want to be there when he knows that I'm not there. I want to watch him in the weight room. If you got 10 reps on the bench and you get to 8 and you know you can't get to 10, are you asking the spotter to take you through the final 2 or are you racking it? Because you know what? If you rack that shit in the weight room and you quit in the weight room, guess what your ass will do? You'll quit on the field, okay? When you're supposed to run 10 hundreds and you get to 7 and you're puking, will you stride out the other 3 or will you shut it down, okay? What are you doing when no one's watching you, okay? Show me the guy that studies film. Is he studying film with the group? Or is he studying film because they can track all of that? He's taking his pad home. Is he studying film at home? You know, does he come in? Does he have questions? If I'm a linebacker coach, don't come in my room without a pen and a pad. Because on Friday I'm gonna test your ass. You understand what I'm saying? Because there are some things that I'm gonna put on the board, and there's some things that we talk about that you need to commit to pen and paper because you want to know something. When you write it down and you look at it, and then you look at it repeatedly throughout the week, it becomes ingrained up here. But if I'm doing everything on here and I'm just watching it, I'm just watching football. There's no data that's like being, you know, this being, you know, downloaded into my server. That's what football is, especially for defensive players, because offensive players, they know the snap count, they know the play, they know where it's going. They know what they're trying to accomplish. A defensive player is read and react. So if you can't anticipate, and I'm not saying guess, and there have been times where I guessed, and I guess wrong, and times where I guess and I guess right. But the times where I'm anticipating because I'm prepared, that's the difference. That is the difference.
Seth,
That's
why
the
do I
difference between the great players and the average player.
Seth, why do I look at Nakobe Dean and I'm not impressed with him?
I think it's his size.
I do too. I think he's too small. I think, look, now
I didn't realize he's small.
Denzel Perriman's a small dude too, and so was Sam Mills. But those dudes were built a little different than this guy. They were built with that big ass and then big legs, and they got under people with leverage. This kid doesn't look like he plays with a lot of leverage. And Seth, it almost looks like this. Man, they had some horses and defensive linemen. The kid Carter this year, the kid Walker a year ago, Jordan Davis. I mean, hey, you could be a little dude playing behind them guys and be a straight player and go up and down the sidelines. As long as you don't have bad reads, you're going to make a lot of tackles. But when I look at him, he's not impressive to me.
Hey, listen, the kid makes a lot of tackles, Dan. Even at limited time he played this year. I mean, one time he got limited.
You think he's got a chance?
In the fourth quarter. And he was like one tackle off leading the team in tackling. I remember looking at that stat sheet. I was like, wow, But, to your point, at Georgia, they protected him.
Yeah.
All he had to do was just run to the ball and knock snot out of people. And I think sometimes that's the problem that we get into, in evaluating players. We look at the obvious things and we fall in love with the obvious things and we miss the non-obvious things. He does look small. So he's going to have to get in the weight room and he's going to have to put on some pounds. But he seems to be a really smart kid.
Yeah.
And if you're going to play at that size, like Sam Mills and guys smaller backers, they knew where the hell they were supposed to be all the time.
Like Denzel Perriman. Denzel's a small dude.
They don't make mistakes in their reads and where they're supposed to be, and they get to where they're supposed to get to. And when they get there, they hold their ground. Now the NFL is different now. Back, when I played, if I played against a guy that was 300 pounds, that might have been, 2 or 3 guys in a season.
Yeah.
Towards the end of my career, you started to see more. But you got linebackers that are playing at 225, 220, 230. You're playing against offensive linemen that you're giving up 100 pounds to. So if your reads aren't precise, even when you come downhill and try to take a guy off and try to pop a guy, he got 100 pounds on you, So I mean, you got to put some lead in your pants,
I want to do one.
Out how to get that done.
I want to sneak one last one in. If you had to keep one of the backers, would you keep Edwards or would you keep Kaiser White if you're Howie? Who do you keep? Because you said it all year, and Seth, once you said it, I think it was maybe after the Pittsburgh game, you started going like this. These guys are struggling covering backs and tight ends. And you started hammering that, and I started watching it, and it was really proficient in the Super Bowl. I mean, that kid Pacheco is a rookie, man. He was all over the place. And then they started running those crossing routes. And they were trying to pass off too. Seth, I didn't get the whole scheme. They were passing off wideouts. Guys were getting confused and wide open. The backers had a hole in the middle of the zone. I'm going, man, these guys are all confused. Second half was a shit show, I thought, defensively. So, I mean, both these guys, I think, struggle in covering people. If you had to keep one, who would it be?
That's a tough question because, in a guy like Kaiser White, when I watched him in the first preseason game he played, the way he read the quarterback and intercepted that ball, the way he looked in that game, that first series that he played, I was like, man, this dude right here, he's my preseason pick for the Pro Bowl. And he just faded.
He got worn out.
And the thing that perplexed me is when they did go to their dime package, they took him out and left, TJ Edwards in it. Now, TJ Edwards is a coverage liability.
Yes.
I mean, if I gave him, a down comforter, he couldn't cover himself, you know, and it's no fault of his own because all the years he's been in the league, no one's taught him how to properly cover running backs and tight ends, you know. So you, in a lot of ways, I don't fault these guys. I fault the guys who coached them that didn't give them the tools in their toolbox to actually be the player they need to be. Now, TJ sets the defense. He understands the defense. He's a tackling machine, okay? But Dan, answer me a question. If you took both of these linebackers' stats, they got a lot of tackles, but between them, I don't know that they have one interception, one sack, one caused fumble, one recovered fumble. I don't know that between the two, they played 20-plus games apiece.
Oh, absolutely. They were non-factor in turnovers.
So then my thing is, okay, TJ Edwards is a tackling machine. That's all fine and dandy. But in this day and age of a 4-2 front where you only play a maximum of 2 linebackers, unless they go 12 personnel and you can get away with another linebacker, or they go multiple tight ends, you got to have at least one of those guys has to be a hellraiser.
Yeah.
He's got to be a guy that can do it all. Neither one of them can blitz. Neither one of them can cover man-to-man. So it limits how you can, what you can actually call as a defensive coordinator, okay? And if I got to pick one, I'm going to pick, TJ Edwards. Because the way Kazir White fell off at the end of the year, I was so disappointed in how he played because I really had high hopes for him.
Yeah, last 4 games, Seth, it just seemed the season wore him out or something. He just all of a sudden he's making false steps. He was running behind the play. He was chasing. I thought he really ran out of gas at the end, and I think that had something to do with his stature.
Hey, listen, man, I think that I said it twice.
Could it have been the run defense too, Seth? The run defense wasn't that hot this year. They were 17th.
True. But I think that when you look at I say this. The Eagles are fortunate to me because they played, I think, 6, maybe 7 games, possibly 8 6, 7 games before they had their bye week. And people were talking, oh, what do you do on the bye week? Oh, the players get away. Okay. But you do have some added practices in there. Okay. And OTAs and a lot less in training camp because you got so much install going on. You don't have the luxury of just taking one day and saying, this is going to be a technique day. Okay. We're going to work on and polish up the techniques that went to hell in a handbasket over a 5-6 game schedule. Okay. And then you get to the Super Bowl and you got 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. Okay. You ain't letting the players go nowhere. The players are there for the next 14 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Take a day and say, okay, we're going to polish up on our technique. Okay. Linebackers, taking it on with the right shoulder, coming up, eating up the space and man-to-man instead of sitting back and giving the running back a 2-way go. Taking your jam on Travis Kelce from inside out, and making him release where you want him to release him, which gives you a better chance to cover him man-to-man. I just thought that, hey, you take Kazir White and put him on Travis Kelce because he can certainly run with him.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But if he's not versed in how to beat him up at the line of scrimmage and make his release, difficult, and then bring the safety over the top, they just let the guy run through in the first half. They let him run all through the damn defense. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing? After the first quarter, I'm like, he's on pace for 200 yards in this damn game. And we have no adjustment to him.
Totally.
Of all the guys on that offense, how do you drop back in zone and not know where he is?
Right.
I'm just like going berserk watching.
Wide open, Seth. Those crossing routes in the second half, they went in that halftime, Seth. And those crossing routes, you saw the safeties and the corners trying to pass it off. Then Gannon tried to play press coverage. I'm like, you ain't played that shit all year. Now you're playing it. I mean, he was 90% completion percentage, Seth Mahomes, in the second half, and the only reason he had an incomplete pass was a throwaway.
You want to know what the issue is? When you see players jawing at each other on a touchdown play, you know what that tells me? Communication.
Confused.
Communication. Okay. Yep. I thought you were going to do this, but you did that. No. Okay. The defense is called. I don't want to hear silence. If you're playing on my defense, you better be talking. Alert this, alert that. Okay, if they go here, we're going to check that. You better be talking. Because once it happens, too late. The game is too fast. What am I anticipating? Okay, football is a numbers game. Okay, you can go 2 by 2 or you can go 3 by 1. Okay, some teams get so creative is that they'll motion the back out to the 4 receiver side. Okay, but the game comes down to numbers, Dan. They come down to numbers. You know, in the old adage that if a guy's leaving, another guy's coming. Okay, so if I line up to the 3 wide receiver side, okay, and number 3 runs out, my inclination is to look for 1 or 2 to come back in. If he's leaving, somebody's coming back. Okay, if I got a back in the backfield, an Alvin Kamara type, and I get a tight end on this side, and me and the backer are responsible for the tight end and the running back, okay, in zone. And that tight end crosses, okay, and that running back crosses. What are they trying to do? They know that the guy on this side is going to take the tight end. They want me to jump the running back coming across. Why? Because they got the deep damn dig coming behind me.
That's right.
Okay, so if I've done my job, and I understand that, you know what I'm going to do? I can't tell you how many interceptions I made off of the same play I'm talking about. I would get down in the crotch, and I would just slow pedal, and the minute those 2 guys would cross, the quarterback would think I was gone because I'm crouched down and he can't see me. He'd throw the ball right to me. I can't tell you how many interceptions I made.
Seth, do you know Ed Reed said the same thing to me on how he would go about covering Peyton Manning, that he would go back and watch game film, and that Peyton would always try to move the safety over, and he knew when he moved the safety over, they'd do a drag route coming across the middle of the field, and this guy would be one-on-one wide right here. Ed said, do you know how many times I jumped the route on Breeze and guys like that? Because you go back, Seth, guys like you go back and watch, and then you're like a pitcher, Seth. You know, a guy, you're like a baseball player that has, well, this guy's really good with a high fastball. This guy's not the best over here. You're going to look at these quarterbacks and go, this guy loves that route. He loves to try to move the safety and the backers over with his head, but he's coming back, and he's going to run a wheel route over here. And it gives you the advantage. See, that's the shit you're talking about, Seth, that you could teach a linebacker, that it's not just about watching game film in the last 3 games. It's about creating a diary or a book on how you play the position.
Dude, let me tell you something, man. When I was studying film, everybody tries to make it seem like these analytics are something revolutionary, okay? You remember, we used to get the printout, you know, with the game plan.
Like Wednesday was game day. We got the game plan on Wednesday.
Yeah, and you got the printout with the game plan.
Yep.
But they never taught us, the players, how to read the printout, okay? So you know what I would do is I would create my own analytics, and I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. Because if a team was an I-back or a 2-back team, okay, I would go in and I would ask the video guy, I said, on Wednesday, I need all the runs, all the running plays for every formation that they run. And after practice was over, I'd go in the room and I would chart every single run. And by me charting them, okay, I would take a sheet of paper and draw an I formation. I write, okay? And I would chart 1 run, 2 run. I would tally them. And you know what I would do? When I get done, I look at them like, holy shit. On 1st and 2nd down, they like to toss the ball strong. Okay? So now I'm already anticipating what's going on. And I'm turning to Byron. I'm like, Byron, toss strong, toss strong. And he's looking at me like, okay. So he takes a step over. I'm telling Reggie, big dog, toss strong. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, completely.
So when you, for me, I was always a visual learner. I had to draw it up in order for me to understand. The reason why I could tell you what every player was doing on the field and every defense that we were running, because I learned it by drawing it up. I draw the offensive play. I put cover 2 against it. And I'm like, okay, the corner's going to jam. He's going to roll up on the outside.
So, Seth, if you saw a Brown set, if you saw a Brown set to the strong side and you saw a tight end, you saw the backers, or you saw the way the linemen were standing, and you saw 2 wide, you'd kind of have an understanding of what their top 3 plays were when they were in a Brown set, a strong side, yellow set, a black set, depending on where you were on the hash. You knew. Did you go by the hash, Seth, on what you knew their favorite plays were? Middle of the field, plus 20, minus 20. Was all that going through your head pre-snap?
See, what I needed to know was what the down and distance was and where we are on the field. And then I need to know the formation. Because, listen, I could look at the formation and look at the down and distance and look at where we were on the field. And I had a mental snapshot of exactly, what the analytics that I created looked like. And I would say, oh, shit, they're going to run it over here, or they're going to throw it over here. They like to run a toss on this play, and I would anticipate. I wasn't guessing, but I was anticipating. So when I say that, it's like people don't understand, man. It's like the stuff that goes into, how you prepare for a game each and every week. That's why writing this stuff down to me is so important, because if you write it down, then you're going to commit some of it to memory. And if you commit enough of it to memory, there's going to be opportunities where you can take chances. Like you see some guys, they play the game by the letter. Okay. And I'll give you this one last story. Okay. So we're playing the Dallas Cowboys. They come to the vet and they come out in I formation, I right. So I'm lined up, their right to our defensive left. Now, Jay Novacek is the tight end. Now, he gave me fits in the passing game, but if you put 2 of him together, he couldn't block me. Okay. And they come out 1st and 10, and I'm like, I'm in my mind, I see my sheet. I'm like, oh shit, they like to run toss strong out of this. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, he can't block me. Okay. The only way he can block me is to overreach me. So the ball snaps, he overreaches. I stutter step
back inside.
I stutter step him, and I shoot inside, and I make the tackle for a 5-yard loss. First play of the game, okay? And I'm just talking trash. I'm damn near in their huddle. I'm like, Trey, don't run that no more. You know he can't block me, and I know he can't block me. You better tell Jimmy not to call that damn play. And I'm almost in their huddle, Dan. I'm like talking cash crap. The whole play. So the series is over, and I come back to the sideline, and Buddy's like, you got contained. If you're going to do that, you better make that play, because if they get outside of you, I'm like, Coach, I got it. But that's what I love about him, is he allowed us to take chances and make plays. Because if you put in the work and you understand how they're trying to attack you, when I see guys that are indecisive, that tells me either A, you're unprepared, defensive coordinator didn't prepare you, or B, you didn't do enough work during the week. Hanging out, partying, chasing girls, all of that stuff was more important to you than your dream. This is your freaking dream. And I wasn't going to allow anybody or anything to deflect me from my dream. I knew my years was limited. I was blessed to play 13, but my number one priority when I was playing was football. And my family and everybody around me understood that.
I love it, Seth. This was such a class. I could just see this in Jerome doing this to you. Hey, I'm going. What? Hey, I'm going. What he meant. What do you mean you're going?
Yeah.
Seth, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. This was really awesome for you to spend this much time with us. And hey, by the way, be prepared, man. Higher Seth Joyner's already trending. So I got to tell you, man.
This is what I do. I talk football, man. I talk football. I can talk football till the cows come home, man. So I know you only wanted me on for a quick, 30-minute segment. We were probably on for an hour and a half.
Hour? Hey, I don't think it's an hour. I think
it's all good, man. This is what I do, man.
Hey,
this
Seth,
is what I do.
I
love talking again.
Appreciate it. Be looking on your Twitter, dude. I think things are gonna roll here a little bit.
Thank you
so much.
You got it, Dan. I think I'm about to get off Twitter for a couple of days.
Go to Europe. Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it. The great Seth Joyner,
Take care, man.
That was fabulous of him and his time spending with us. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
My name is Fran Salerno. I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense during retirement? Are most of your assets in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks? Taxes are historically low today, but we're facing significant headwinds in the future. Do you have a plan? The Thrive Financial team has more than 100 years of experience helping people across the Delaware Valley with forward-looking tax planning. Learn how to shift your money from forever tax to no or low tax accounts. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Big Sil's National Football Show, Javon Hargrave is going to be the New England Patriots' #1 target in this upcoming offseason. Was just given that heads up that Javon Hargrave is going to be targeted by the New England Patriots, and they'll give top dollar to him. So the chances of Hargrave being back with the Eagles is not a high opportunity. By the way, Tone, do me a favor. I just sent Xander this. I know we got the one clip that said that he would be interested in taking the DC job with the Eagles. I also want that clip, Tone, if we can, that he'd be even willing to take the linebacker job as long as he had some say in the defense. Because to me, Seth Joyner as the linebacker coach, I mean, I don't know how, if you're the Eagles, he's offered himself up to be the D coordinator. And if that's not good, okay, and if that's not good enough, Seth would even be willing to take an opportunity if he had some impact, the linebacker job. I don't know about you guys, but is there anything left to say on that? And I happen to agree with him. What's the type of coordinator that you're going to want? Aren't you going to want if you're, get this, guys. Oh, I'm going to do everything in my power. Are you kidding me, Jameson, to make sure Seth Joyner gets an opportunity? I'll create as much hay as possible. If I have to get him an interview with Frank Reich tomorrow, I'm going to tell Frank Reich this. Hey, Frank, Seth Joyner has offered himself to be the linebacker coach in Philadelphia, and he's offered to be the defensive coordinator. He's hiring former players down there now in Carolina. The head football coach of the Carolina Panthers is on tomorrow at 4 p.m. And maybe this pushes the Eagles to bring Seth in for an interview. You got to create leverage. And I'm going to talk to Frank tomorrow. He's on. Frank is on tomorrow. So what we're going to do is force the Eagles' hand. So you're just going to let Seth Joyner go down to Carolina, interview with Frank Reich, but you won't? Why? And you're going to talk to a college defensive coordinator over Joyner? Why? Why would you go down that route? And if the Eagles pass on him, then it's for other issues that we can't have any control over. Okay? Then there's nothing else. Then there's nothing else. Frank Reich, the head coach of Carolina, is on tomorrow. Hiring a college defensive coordinator. Hiring a former college football head coach. Jim Harbaugh works. You know why Jim Harbaugh works on an interview? Very simple. He's 44-19-1 as an NFL head coach with an NFC championship game and a win to his name. And he played 17 years. So when Jim Harbaugh's interviewed, you're okay with it. Because I personally think that Jim Harbaugh's a better NFL coach than college coach. Bob, thank you. I think he's a better coach. I think he's a better coach. What was crazy in that interview is that Seth was taking you into the mind of an elite quarterback on the defensive side, which is the linebacker. He was letting you see the game. Very few people do that and can be articulate like Seth and give you his eye and what he sees and what he thinks, the work he put in behind the scenes. Are you under some impression he wouldn't do that as a coach? Can you imagine his work ethic as a coach? Because the only impact he could make is through other players' production. I think he'd be frustrated with that. I think he'd be frustrated. Okay? Seth Joyner, You wouldn't hire Seth Joyner as your linebacker coach? Man, I can potentially see the coordinator. That's why, Tone, I think it's important that we get that bite that he would even do the linebacker coach. Because to me, Seth wants to make an impact with the Eagles. Seth Joyner doesn't need money, guys. He's got a passion for your city and your team, the colors, his legacy. See, Seth has a legacy in Philly that can never be dented or destroyed. It could never be. His legacy is it's stamped in that city forever. He's not an Arizona Cardinal or Packer. Okay? He wanted to extend his career with those places. He's an Eagle. And he played on the greatest defense. I don't care what they say. Hey, guys, you don't think that 2022 defense is better than the gangrene guys. I don't give a shit what the statistics tell you. That team is not better than Simmons, White, Joyner, Brown, Hopkins, Waters, Allen. Come on. Come on. Jeff Fisher, Bud Carson, Buddy Ryan. Come on. Come on. And I asked the most important question. Seth, if they offered you, or I first asked the question, have they contacted you on, the defensive coordinator? And, I thought that had to be asked. And then I said, would you want it? And then when he added in that he'd be the linebacker coach, Bobby Taylor, Jesus. I was inspired. I was. And by the way, folks, you know what's great about Seth? Seth thought he was on for an hour. I think he was on for an hour and a half. Just talking ball. Probably to him, felt like 15 minutes. Seth was born to be an Eagle. He was born to be an Eagle. Brian, I got offered to coach the D-line in Cleveland. North Carolina. Cleveland Browns offered me the D-line. I got offered a personnel job with the Raiders and Al Davis and Ken Herrick. Butch offered me the D-line job in Cleveland and at UNC. And I think, we kind of talked a little bit about it when he was down at Miami, but it never came to a head because Ed Orgeron was the D-line coach then. And then Ed went to Southern Cal, and I think he had me and a couple. Then he gave it to Greg Mark. I had thought about it. My aunt thinks that I got into the wrong profession. Hey, with today's coaching salaries, I probably did. Hey, I probably did. Because you don't have to be very good today to be a coach to get paid. I mean, look at Cliff Kingsbury. So let me get this right. Cliff Kingsbury had Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, and he didn't have a winning record. Okay, how could you have those two quarterbacks and not have a winning record, right? I mean, dude, I think Big Sills and JAKIB Sports and the National Football Show and all of you, I think you guys made some news today because Seth has said he would take the job as a linebacker coach or defensive coordinator. He'd love to be interviewed. I don't know about you, but that's because of you. Hey, Joseph goes, man, I didn't get any work done the whole hour and a half. Hey, Joseph, I didn't even know we were on an hour and a half. I didn't even know it. I had Xander goes like Sills. Jesus Christ, you two guys are tremendous together. And Tone, right? Tone's like, man, that's just talking football. I told you 10 times if I was Howie, you would be my scout. That was pretty cool, man. I won't lie. 1 hour and 40 minutes. Jesus, that's so dope. My wife is pissed at me. Big Sills, your show is groundbreaking. Today I had a great conversation with the boss. And Xander, I know he listens. I had a conversation with the boss. Feel pretty good about things. So we're good. We're good. Hey, this is just for Big Joe and Xander. A little motivated today. I'll leave it at that. Hey, wait. You said this is the best. Wait till tomorrow when I tell Frank Reich, hey, you got to bring Seth Joyner down for an interview. He wants to be the linebacker coach or the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. I'm sure you can have a spot on your coaching staff. By the way, he's putting the coaching staff together as we speak. I think he just hired a former player, by the way. Hey, I love – see, no, wait a minute now. You guys – you know what's great about every one of you guys that watch the show? You give me a ton of shit, and you think I'm against you. I'm not. I'm not against you. Now, do I like the, a little bit. Yeah, all right. Okay. Okay. Bob. No, Bob. It's not, Bob. I'm creating leverage to make the Eagles want to interview him. If I get Carolina to do it, maybe the Eagles do it. How can the Eagles be right now interviewing the defensive coordinator guy or the DB coach, whatever the hell he is, with Michigan? Michigan? Really? Because Michigan is a defensive stalwart in games. Michigan, who struggles against Army. I mean, dude, come on. Okay? Oh, Carson, you wait till tomorrow when Frank Reich's on. By the way, I'm going to ask Frank, hey, did you and Nick kind of have a conversation Super Bowl week a little bit, Was there a little bit of that? So we're going to get kind of behind the scenes a little bit there. Oh, yeah. Lose the Michigan bum. I'm with you, Birds fan. Sills, we have a big problem. Howie needs to think this is hit. Oh! Hey, Tone, put Bob's up. Put Bob's take up. Bob Brown. Great take. And I'm all for this. Sills, we have a problem. Howie needs to think this is his idea. His ego won't allow him to be forced into anything. How right you are. Well, I'm going to have to reach out to two dudes on the coaching staff. One was a teammate, one coached at Miami. And I got their contact information. Funny, the Eagles don't let assistant coaches do interviews. But that's okay, except for the coordinators. So how can I get – do you guys know who the connections that Sills has in the building? One was a former University of Miami coach, and the other one was my teammate. I think you guys know who my teammate was. I wonder if I have a picture of him. The defensive line coach in Pittsburgh was also on my team, was a former teammate, Carl Dunbar. Tracy Rocker's a former teammate of mine. Do you know who was a coach at the University of Miami? Merrill, not Merrill. Do you know? Making it Howie's idea. So I'm going to have to somehow get that into Tracy's hands and this other coach on your staff who was a University of Miami. You guys don't know that there is a University of Miami coach who's on your staff right now? Not head coach. He was a position coach. Do you guys don't know who he is? Don't snitch on your sources. Steven, thank you. You guys know who it is? Had a great conversation about a month ago with him. He would be the linebacker coach. No. So he's about to make Howie an offer he can't refuse. Jeff Stoutland coached at the University of Miami with Randy Shannon. Randy Shannon gave me Jeff Stoutland's cell phone number. You got it, 215. Jeff Stoutland coached at the University of Miami. Hey, Jeff, guess what? Never going to believe who I had on the show today. I had this guy named Seth Joyner. You may have heard of him. You may have seen the guy in the green jacket. Stoutland was a University of Miami coach. I think for 5 years under Shannon. I think Jeff Stoutland, he was an interim coach. I think Jeff Stoutland coached the bowl game. He may have coached the Sun Bowl, the El Paso Sun Bowl. He sent me a jacket. I forgot about that. I got the Sun Bowl. I think he sent me a jacket. Ray would endorse him? Wow. Holy cow. Hey, look, guys, I'm gonna take a timeout here because we got to catch up a little bit on timeouts, right, Tone? Because we went an hour and 40 minutes with Seth Joyner here. When I come back, the top quarterbacks. By the way, maybe one of these quarterbacks at the bottom, maybe somebody the Eagles will look at. Like I said, I'm not wasting a 1, 2, 3, or 4, hell, maybe even a 5th round pick on a quarterback, but I do need a backup. Okay? And also the quarterback market. This is going to pertain to Jalen Hurts here. Do me a favor, guys. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messon Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
My name is Fran Salerno. I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense during retirement? Are most of your assets in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs and 401ks? Taxes are historically low today, but we're facing significant headwinds in the future. Do you have a plan? The Thrive Financial team has more than 100 years of experience helping people across the Delaware Valley with forward-looking tax planning. Learn how to shift your money from forever tax to no or low tax accounts. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Sills National Football Show. Appreciate you coming aboard. Man, a lot of stuff to unravel still with that Joyner interview. Probably hire Brian Dawkins if he was the coordinator too as your secondary coach. Brian Dawkins as your secondary coach, Seth Joyner as your DC. Probably keep Tracy. Whew. Imagine the coaching staff he'd put together. Okay. Dank, I'm working on the draft. I'm getting there. As a matter of fact, speaking of that, let's get to that. Then I'm going to get to the quarterback market that affects Jalen Hurts here. I wrote down the top quarterbacks. And by the way, for the record, would I rather have Bryce Young or Jalen Hurts? I'd rather have Jalen. Remember, Bryce is going to be the first player taken. Okay? Yeah, well, I'm interested. Yeah, would you rather have Bryce Young or Jalen Hurts? Thank you, my friend. Bryce is too small. Bryce is fragile. You can't really hit the guys anymore. Thank you, Jameson. Tone, interested. Would you rather have Bryce Young or Jalen Hurts? I think so. Remember, this kid's going to be the number one pick. Do you know that there's some people out there saying that he's a smaller version of Patrick Mahomes? I'm not ready to go there. Okay? Hey, Dan, thank you and JAKIB for this show. We are moving the needle. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Wait a minute, though. Brian, if it wasn't for you guys, WIP and the Fanatic would be turds. One is anyway. But they would be a non-factor if it wasn't for you two and you guys. Are you kidding? There's not exceptional talent on the radio in that city. There's not. Okay? That's why all the legendary guys are still revered. Howard, Angelo. Okay? And by the way, I do like John Ritchie, so I don't want to talk shit on him. I like him. But hey, Jalen or Bryce Young? Bryce Young's the number one rated guy, 94.1. 6 feet, 194. I'll take Jalen. C.J. Stroud, Ohio State, 6'3", 218, 90.9, is the second-ranked quarterback. Would I take C.J. or Hurts? I'm not impressed with Stroud. Will Levis, Kentucky, 6'3", 232, 89.5. Think he's good. He's going to go in the first round. I'll take Hurts. The kid Hooker from Tennessee, 6'4", 208. Jalen, all night. My point is that even with Howie's 2 first-round picks, there's still not a quarterback in the first round that I would be comfortable using my first 2 rounds to go like this. Well, I'm going to draft this kid, and he's my future over Hurts. You know what I mean? You know, sometimes when you see a guy in the draft, like Trevor Lawrence, this year's version of Trevor Lawrence, that's kind of what we should have saw a year ago, but because he had a shitty coach, Urban Meyer stunted his growth. Okay? Some would say, Caleb Williams, we'll see. Didn't look very good against Utah. But then again, neither did Southern Cal's defense. Southern Cal will never play defense ever again at USC. They're not very good. Still's invited to the barbecue now. Oh, okay. Why? Because I'm working on getting Seth an interview with the Eagles as defensive coordinator. Oh, I see how this works. Hey, Sills, you know, you're an outside shit talker. Until you show us something, hey, you bust a Vazul, you know? I mean, hey, you know, we're going to leave you in Patterson. You can't come down into Philly, man. You're going to have to stay in Patterson, New Jersey. What? Yeah, you're going to have to stay in Patterson. You can't. Wait a minute. What did he say? I love this, man. This is like my Italian family. Watch this. Sileo did what today? What did that hemorrhoid do? He had Seth on, and he got Seth to say that he'd want to be the DC and maybe even the linebacker coach. Oh, let me give this guinea another chance. Hey, how you doing? Who's this guy? What's he doing now? He's still talking shit on Hurts? This guy's still talking shit on Hurts? Hey, and by the way, Brian, I don't have anything against Passaic or Patterson. Okay? I don't have anything against Patterson, New Jersey. I got a couple friends that live in Patterson too. You know, it's all good. Sil, look at Bob. Sil's leading the witness again. Tanner McKee, Stanford, 6'6", 230. I'm going to tell you somebody. Look, I think this guy, Anthony Richardson, is going to go in the first round too. The kid from Florida, 6'4", 232. I think he's going to go. But I'll tell you somebody to look at. There's Clayton Tune, 6'3", 216. Might want to look at him. Max Duncan or Dugan, the kid from TCU. Yeah, you know. Stetson Bennett, I'm out. Too small, 5'11", 190. Come on now. This guy, kickers are big. The Eagles' kicker's bigger than this guy. Right? Am I right? Josh Elliott's bigger than this guy, 5'11", 190. I don't know. Right? The kicker's bigger. In fact, even when you give Sills an invite to your barbecue, he was still annoyed. LAFK. Amen. Yes. Now you're getting them. Hey, now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. You know, look, I really like this guy, but he is so annoying. Don't worry about it. My wife and my aunt say the same thing. It's all good, especially my kid. My kid can only take 3 texts a week from me. Just so you know, okay? Can only take a couple. Elliott is bigger because his contract been feeding him well. Hey, I got the kicker's name right. Josh Elliott, is that his name? I don't really know too many kickers. As you can see, I'm not real big on them dudes because it's not a real position. You know, he's on the football team, but he's not a football player. Kickers are not football players. Okay? They're not football players. A long Jake, is it? Oh, it's Jake Elliott? Okay. Thank you. It's not Josh? Hey, that's a name I really don't care if I get right. Hey, Tone, that's a name I really doesn't really, if I don't get that name right, I'm good. Christian Gonzalez at number 10. Or trading down, Bird. Or trading down. I could see Howie trading down to get more quality picks. He's going to have a ton of compensation picks. He's going to have a ton of compensation picks. Dude, I mean, Sayamalo's going to get you one. High, I'm talking top 3, like 3rd round. Sanders might. CJ might. Bradbury might. Man, there's going to be a lot of comp picks. The Eagles are going to have a treasure chest of picks. They're going to need them, especially if they have to retool that side of the ball. Thank you, 5-star. You're awesome. Always part of it. Hey, this is the best thing about these guys. My aunt always says this. By the way, Aunt Betty watches every day. She loves you guys sometimes. Hey, sometimes. Okay? Sometimes. Somebody to replace Quez. Hey, Green. Somebody to replace Quez. You know who could replace Quez? A librarian. I'm sick of hearing this. Well, he's fast. So is a kid in my quad who was in the high school track team, and he ran a 10-200 meters. He's fast too. That don't mean he can catch a football. Hey, he's fast. The kid in my quad runs a 10-2. He was on the Torrey Pines track and field team. Okay? But that don't mean he's a good football player. Well, this guy real, man. He's fast. Yeah, Quez is fast, and this guy's got like brick hands. 2 most important drops in the history of the Eagles, or I should say over the last 6 years. Alshon Jeffries in New Orleans and Quez Watkins in Glendale. Remember this. Maybe if you want to talk about moments for Eagles, Rondé Barber on the interception in 2004. Alshon Jeffries in New Orleans in 2018. And Quez dropping the ball in Glendale in 2023. Is that fair? Those 3. Sorry to bring it up. Hey, just like the guy said, see, this is where Sileo's back to annoying me again. Ed, this is where he's back to annoying me again. All right, listen. I tell you guys this all the time. Maybe it's big sales with get off my lawn guy. But I want to show you the numbers for just 5 quarterbacks that their agents are starting to pimp. You ready? Lamar Jackson, Baltimore. They're saying Miami's going to offer him $52 million. You heard it right. $52 million. Derek Carr, Las Vegas, the Bucks, and the Jets are the leading candidate. $30 to $35 million for a guy who was just cut. Okay. Hey, 30 to 35 million. Brian, wow. I think that's an understatement. Okay. Daniel Jones. Dimes Jones. 29 to $35 million. I'd say they're going to franchise tag his ass. Daniel Jones, a $35 million a year guy. Big sales, man. Better get out of that old days, man. You sound like an old man. I guess so. Listen to what Geno Smith in Seattle are talking about a contract between $29 and $34 million for a guy who's been in the league 11 years and had one exceptional year. Oh, this goes in. Charlie, this is where I'm going with Jalen. Jimmy Garoppolo, San Francisco, they can't trade him. He's a free agent. He's a UFA. Green, Geno Smith's only had 1 year. He hasn't had two. What year do you remember where he was great like he was in Seattle? What year are you talking? They're talking for Garoppolo between $18 and $30 million for the Buccaneers. Remember all those idiots that said Big Sills didn't have any connections, and everybody on the internet ripped me about Garoppolo going to the Bucs? Well, Brady changed course and went back to Tampa. So I was a year late, and Garoppolo goes to the Bucs. Sorry, Tim Stroud, who's like the big hack down there in Tampa. Bucs have no interest in Jimmy Garoppolo. Really? Well, the Bucs are the leading candidate to land him. Between 18 and 30 million for Jimmy G. By the way, the Eagles play the Buccaneers. Buccaneers got a pretty good team. My point is, when you look at all these salaries, 52 million, 35 million, 32 million, 34 million, 30 million. Jalen Hurts has got to land somewhere. My problem again, okay, and the 52 for Lamar, don't think that this is just something that's a Jalen Hurts thing. Would you give $52 million to Lamar Jackson, having missed the amount of games he's missed the last 3 years? If you're Steve Biscotti, the owner of the Ravens, do you feel comfortable giving him $52 million? I'm with you. F no. Okay? F no. But he's going to get it. So to me, if I'm Jalen Hurts and you're comparing me to the MVP that he was unanimous, I let Lamar set the market, or at least see what the first offer is. And then if I'm Jalen Hurts' people clutch, if they're offering him 52, some would go like this: well, he's a unanimous MVP. You could turn around and go, well, I took a team to a Super Bowl. He hasn't got out of the divisional rounds yet. I've been to the playoffs 2 years in a row. Okay? I've been to the playoffs 2 years in a row. And by the way, I don't squat on playoff games because my contract didn't get done, and I don't sit out of games. And I don't make my contract part of the narrative like he did. I got a problem with him with that. And by the way, I got a problem with the Ravens because the Ravens and Lamar, they're the ones that dragged that out. You had to think that was going to play a factor in the postseason. I mean, he goes like this: I'm not 100%. How many people think Jalen Hurts and Lamar, or how many people think Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes were 100% for the Super Bowl? There's no way they both were. They played. Tone goes like this: well, Mahomes got his money. That's a fact. You guys should have did this in the offseason. You put player contract ahead of team winning. There were 52 other guys in that locker room that the organization and the quarterback didn't give a shit about. So when my contract comes up and I'm commanding money, why do I have to care about you when you didn't give a shit about me in Baltimore? Baltimore has been really wobbly since Ozzie Newsome left. I think it's been really wobbly. Okay? Since he's left, I think DaCosta has a chance to be a good GM. But that organization has been wobbly, to say the least. Frank Wright, tomorrow at 4 p.m., the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Please go back and watch the Seth Joyner interview. It was classic. It was awesome. I can't tell you how I appreciate you guys. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button. Till tomorrow, 3 to 6 Eastern time. We'll see you on the flip side.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service